I've done a lot of videos on the Bravely Default series on this channel, like 10 or 12 or 150 videos or something. I don't know. Every one of the mainline games I have done at least some kind of video on. But one thing I haven't really touched on in any extensive way is the spin-off games. So far, there have been 4 spin-off games released only in Japan, never to be translated and brought over to the West. And while Brilliant Lights has only just released and may have a chance of making it over, considering that we are now getting the mobile Octopath prequel this summer, the same cannot be said for the other 3 games. Bravely Default Fairies Effect, Bravely Archive, Dee's Report, and the game that this video is focused on are all now shut down, offline, almost completely lost to time. While we have some baseline information on each game, general premises and such, unless you played the game and could understand Japanese, their stories are more or less unknown. If only there was an archive for these games. So I found an archive for Praying Brage's plot. Upon the game's termination of service, Square Enix created this website, bravely.jp, as an official archive for the game's contents. Bravely Default Praying Brage was a browser game that began its beta in 2012 and ended service in April of 2019. The archive has a complete character list, all main story quest dialogues, and a collection of promotional manga strips. We're not really going to be talking about the gameplay today, though if you want to see what it was like for yourself, I will be linking a playlist that shows an entire game playthrough. This video is going to be dedicated to going over the entire story of the game, all 135 quests. No quests have been cut, though I have tried to summarize each one as much as possible for the sake of brevity. Although considering how long this video is, probably didn't make much of a difference. So, it's probably best to pause the video now, go get yourself a snack and something to drink, because this is going to be a long one. Before we get into the plot of Praying Brage, there's a few things we need to go over. Firstly, this story is split into 3 volumes, as I will refer to them. You can see on the site that there are 4 pages to visit in the story section. This first one is just introductory stuff, which we will still be going over as the prologue, but I wouldn't count it as its own complete volume. Second, although this is going to cover the complete plot as provided from the archive, there is still some story missing. My assumption is that this plotline was part of the base game or the beta perhaps. The good news about this at least is that none of the missing story has any super significant bearing on the story I'm covering here. So when you hear the terms the Duke of Gelug, the Snake Messengers, or the Rovos Party, just know that they aren't really pivotal to the plot. They were just enemies that have been beaten in the past and are going to be mentioned here and there. Third, as was the case with the Bravely Default Anthology video, all the translating was just me using Chrome's built-in translation extension, so the English that came out was very broken. For dialogue that was a little too jumbled, I double-checked it through DeepL as well, and based on these 2 translators, I used my own understanding of the Bravely universe to piece this story together. I also cross-referenced scenes and events with the playthrough I mentioned earlier. However, there's still the likelihood that there are some errors, but I believe I've gotten the plot down for the most part. Fourth, there are going to be returning characters from the previous Bravely games. Except for a select few, most of them are summoned. From what I can tell, these are not technically the same people, but they have their memories and personalities. They're reconstructions, basically, so just keep that in mind. And finally, if you enjoy this video, please be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons. This took a lot of work to bring this video to fruition, and any and all support is thoroughly appreciated. Thank you. Alright, that's all the introductory stuff out of the way. Without further delay, I present Bravely Default Praying Brage. The game begins with a history lesson from Soleno, a crystal officer who is a recurring NPC in the game. She explains that 200 years after the events of the first Bravely Default, the southern ocean of Luxendark is evaporated by the Holy Pillar, summoned by the Bringer of Ruin. The 4 crystals of earth, water, fire, and wind were shattered and spread across Luxendark. Great and terrible thunderclouds formed that blotted out the sun, beginning a decade of black rains and roaring thunder. Survivors abandoned the flatlands. The lands of Luxendark then began to separate from the surface of the world and begin disintegrating as they rose into the atmosphere. First were the cliffs west of Florum, then the northern region of Eisenberg. Over the next century, many portions of Luxendark are lost. 4 plains, 8 highlands, 3 oceans, and 2 continents. 50 years before present day in Praying Brage, members of a group claiming to be the Crystal Orthodoxy land on the rising continent via airships, and plant a crystal piece from gathered fragments in the ground. The continent stops rising, and settles in the sky above the thunderclouds. This continent is named Crystallica. The organization then used their airships to deliver people from the dying Luxendark to the new promised land of Crystallica. The Orthodoxy then planted crystals in 4 more of these rising islands, appointing a Vestal to each. These 4 islands are Windren, home of the Wind Crystal, Odina, home of the Water Crystal, Ignis, which houses the Crystal of Fire, and Petrania, land of the Crystal of Earth. The new society there embraced crystal faith. Artificial crystal production, also called the Law of the Crystal, was developed, and the decline of the crystal power within Crystallica was halted. The Anchor Obelisk was also developed, allowing the people to halt the ascent of any new islands and secure them at a stable height, allowing for the nation's expansion, as well as the collection of resources and crystal fragments. And such is the state of Crystallica as we begin our story. When the game starts, you are greeted by Aerie, who serves as your guide and companion throughout the entire game. She does most of the talking on behalf of the player. Afterwards, the player chooses one of the 4 Vestals to follow. These are the candidates. Edea Lee Oblige, Vestal of Wind. Having taken the place of the previous Vestal after her mysterious disappearance, Edea is our main character. She doesn't really have a feel for the whole governing thing, so when she tries to persuade you into following her, she doesn't ask for much, only that you act on your beliefs and what you think is right, which is good enough for her. This is also the same Edea from Bravely Default and Bravely Second. How she ended up 200 years in the future, we'll touch on later. Iglia Ningva Oblige, Vestal of Fire. Iglia is a very straightforward and hot-headed person. Having a bit of a short temper, but extremely brave, Iglia seems to seek power and complete victory over the enemies of Crystallica. The artist's note in the Bravely Default art book from Akihiko Yoshida also mentions that he was told to give her a large chest and that this was as comfortable as he felt going with. Lilia de Rosso Oblige, Vestal of Earth. The youngest of the vessels, Lilia seeks to uphold her family lineage, that of the de Rosso royal line, from the times before Eternia was a duchy and still a kingdom. She wants to restore the kingdom of Eternia here in Crystallica to its former glory and do her ancestors proud. Whether she actually is a descendant of Lester de Rosso is still yet to be seen. She also hates to be treated like a child. Curie Oblige, Vestal of Water. The final of the 4 Vestals, Curie is an intellectual prodigy. Given the chance to study at a young age by the Orthodoxy, Curie is incredibly gifted and was actually the one to develop both the method of artificial crystal creation as well as the Anchor Obelisk. As thanks for giving her that chance as a youth, Curie wishes for her disciples to have unwavering faith in crystalism, and by extension, the Orthodoxy. Her name also kept translating to Cucumber Oblige. Whichever Vestal you choose to follow, however, the story to come remains the same, and thus we move on. The player and Eri arrive at the Grand Temple of Crystallica that has recently been attacked. It has taken severe damage, and Seleno and Maya want the duo to find people to help defend the temples. They recommend visiting each of the Shrine Maidens and getting people based on their suggestions, especially since it would mean that those hired would have nothing to do with the current power struggle between the Pope and the Archbishop. At the Temple of Water, Curie recommends the Flower Knights, a group of 5 girls who are unrivaled in cuteness and are at the temple right now. Though they are good fighters, Curie warns that they still have youthful tendencies. We meet the first Flower Knight, Soru, all alone. Eri asks where the others are, and Soru says she has lost the others, and dragged Yutu along to find them in a nearby forest. 2 members of the group, Puri and Haroline, are found in some ruins, trapped by some toxic monsters, and combat occurs. After the battle, Puri and Haroline were left poisoned by the monster, but it cannot seem to be healed by conventional matters. Just then, Elva appears with a serum to cure the poison. As a member of the State Forestry Corps, he warns everyone that the ruins have been made off-limits because of the monsters. Returning to the Water Temple, Curie thanks the duo for their work, but Sheena and Azamara are still missing after they went chasing after a Prince of Destiny. She also states that the ruins have been made off-limits by the Pope, as well as the Forestry Corps. The duo are sent to find the last 2 Flower Knights, Sheena and Azamara, who both went chasing after the same man after they fell in love with him. They go searching around Odina and find Azamara, who appears to be in a trance-like state and is unresponsive. She then runs away again, and the group chases after her. Cut to Sheena and a man named Jay speaking about the ruins. Jay states that they were empty, but he has found something interesting. When Azamara returns, Jay states that she couldn't resist his medicine extracted from the creature. When the group arrives, Haroline claims that Jay is the one who cheated on Sheena in the past. Jay says that Azamara came to him willingly, and then he used his drug to control her, and then did the same to Sheena when she tried to save her sister. He then makes them attack the party. After battle, Eri demands the antidote from Jay, but he won't hand it over. He wishes that they would call him a tactician before trying to depart. He is interrupted, however, by Anhiria Venus, who calls him out on controlling women and using them like objects. She knocks the antidote from his hands, which prompts him to flee. Sheena and Azamara are given the antidote and recover. Now that the Water Temple has been reinforced, you visit the Fire Vestal, Edea. She states that this whole plan is just a way of using you, to which Eri retorts that she's still following along too. Edea wants the duo to keep the Dragon Busters intact as they are falling apart. They are specialists in one specific field at the Crystallica Magic Academy, and their teamwork is said to result in power capable of defeating dragons. Eri then rushes off to get started, even though it's clear Edea hasn't finished saying everything. Arriving in Ignis, Alm is informed of the request, as Cheryl is shouting in the next room over. When asked about the problem, Alm explains that the Dragon Busters are falling apart. Dalil, the elder sister of the Camus twins, is extremely lazy, and her sister Cheryl takes care of everything for her sister, almost obsessively so. Cheryl is loved by the professors as well, but Dalil has higher potential when she decides to do something. Because of their fighting, no research is getting done, and the Academy may force the Dragon Busters to dissolve. Alm wants the duo to specifically find Dalil, who has gone missing in a valley. The duo find Dalil near a cliff and have to fend off a demon attack. Before Dalil and Eri fall, Nilosa of the Forestry Corps arrives to save them, saying that the area is too dangerous. Arriving back at the Academy, Cheryl is in a flurry over Dalil taking off like that, but the latter reveals it was to get Cheryl her favorite rare flower from the area as a thank you for taking care of her. With 2 of the Dragon Busters returned, Alm wants you to find the remaining 2, Krista and Rias, in a cave of the Earth Dragon to the east. In the cave, they encounter Dee, who attacks them. Krista uses Faraga, but it is ineffective as Dee's attribute is fire. The duo arrive and Eri asks what Dee is doing there. When he won't answer, Eri moves to attack, but the rumbles of the Earth Dragon take precedence and battle begins with the beast. After the battle, the dragon still lives, but Krista calms it down. then collects some eggshell pieces from the area. Rias explains that the shell has magical properties they can use in their research, which is why they came here in the first place. They then all return to the academy. Reporting back to Iglia, she's curious of Dee's intentions and how Christus Faraga didn't even harm him. She also notes that the cave was formerly the burial site of a high priest of the Orthodoxy. After having experienced Jay's mind control drugs, Aerie decides to find Fiore de Rosa to learn more on the subject and see if he was involved. Bumping into Liam, she reveals that illicit drugs have been spreading throughout Crystallica recently, and that she has been searching for De Rosa as well. The three decide to party up. Meeting with Liam's fellow city guard, Jamie and Olga, they investigate a warehouse where De Rosa is suspected to be. Inside, De Rosa is meeting with Camellia, and seems to be selling her drugs, despite her supposedly being part of the town help unit Aoi no Otome. The party interrupts the deal, but the Aoi no Otome members reveal that De Rosa was helping them set up a sting operation to catch the real criminals, and because the party interrupted, the whole thing is ruined now. Afterwards, Aerie shows De Rosa the concoction Jay used, and he informs her that he was not the creator, but can tell that it was made from the body fluids of a demon beast that was nestled in some forest. He also states that a drug like this, used too many times, would kill someone. Seleno and Maya call the duo to go find the missing Crystal Orchestra, who undertook an unauthorized trip to a newly emerged island that was once a part of Northern Florum. It is said that the grave of a former composer, Canadel Utrecht, is there, and that sheets of Utrecht's lost music were buried there. The duo are accompanied to the island by Grela, a member of the Forestry Corps, who is setting up base camp on the new island. The duo hear music being played, which eventually leads them to finding two members of the orchestra, Mew and May, under attack by a demon beast. After saving them, they all return to base camp. Grela takes care of an injured member of the orchestra, then points out that the new floating island is still not safe considering they don't know what monsters could have come up from the surface of Luxemdark. Aerie offers that the two of you will go searching for the remaining three, who are probably at Utrecht's grave, and Grela gives you a flare in case you need help. The duo find the remaining three musicians, Arya, Holland, and Link, quietly discussing how to get into the graveyard, since there's a giant snake blocking the way. Suddenly, E appears, another member of J and D's group, and awakens the serpent, running past into the grave while leaving the others outside to die or be eaten. The group battles the serpent, but when they can't defeat it, Arya uses her music to calm it down and put it back into a slumber. E returns from the grave, stating she has found what she came for, and that all that was left were the music sheets. She hands them over to the musicians, but claims that now she will be their enemy from now on. Aerie uses the flare to signal Grela for help, but E flees before reinforcements arrive. The sheets are revealed to have been written by Utrecht III. Edea Oblige calls the duo to help after she receives an urgent letter from Kami Izumi asking for help. She wishes to join you, but Melope reminds her of her position, as well as all the paperwork she has to do as a Vestal, which Edea hates. Upon arriving, Kami Izumi is surrounded by apprentices. When confronted, he explains that in order to make ends meet, he decided to start instructing people in the martial arts. However, since the current fad is the way of the ninja, he got Kikyo on board. Aerie says that getting Kikyo was a good call, especially with putting her on posters because she's a pretty girl, and Kami Izumi blushes. When Aerie asks where Kikyo is, the facade is dropped, and Kami Izumi reveals herself as Kikyo in disguise. She was the one to send the letter, and currently Kami Izumi is away visiting Brave Lee. When she resumes the disguise, she explains that as Kikyo, she is shy and finds it hard to teach. The apprentices begin to get impatient, wanting to know where Kikyo is, and he announces that the final exam will happen. All they have to do is beat the duo. Iris of the Aoi no Otome approaches and battles you. After the battle, Kami Izumi returns, scolds Kikyo lightly for her mischief, and welcomes the others as his new pupils. Returning to Edea, the situation is explained, and Edea opens a letter Kami Izumi sent her, asking for permission to use her approval of his business as a Vestal and former student as a promotional point. Prison Break! Kamer has escaped from Krystalica prison, and the Aoi no Otome need your help recapturing him. It's believed he had help getting out, and there were reports of an exotically dressed swordsman. The group goes hunting and think they found the swordsman, but accidentally ruin the hunt of Steina and Georges from the city guard. Away from the party, Kamer and Kint are still on the run. As they take a short break, Kamer asks why Kint is bothering to save him, considering he only works for pay. He holds up a tin doll, something the children played with in the streets, and he said they wanted him to break Kamer out, believing that he wasn't that bad of a person. Kint then tells Kamer that they are in a different time and place now, and that they aren't tied to their behaviors from 200 years prior. Kamer asks if Kint's changed, and he replies that the tin doll is his payment now, and that even though before he would only work for money, it was probably that child's treasure. Rumors of your heroics have been spreading, according to Edea. She then asks if it is her time to choose a group to help defend Krystalica. She brings up a treasure hunting unit named Trezo Advent, and reveals that they are already on their way to the temple. Lena, Lapis, Firefly, and Cologne all introduce themselves. Edea then explains that after their last exploit into a labyrinth southeast of Windren, their leader Sunny didn't return. She asks that you go help them find Sunny. With the Trezo Advent leading the duo through the labyrinth, using their treasure hunter skills to avoid traps and the like along the way, they are attacked by a demon. Afterwards, they encounter Sunny with a mysterious man who apparently helped her while she was trapped down in the labyrinth. The man then glares at Eri for a moment, saying that she reminds him of someone he once knew. The group begins to head out, and Eri notices the mysterious man's right arm is prosthetic. You regroup with the rest of Trezo Advent as they are fighting off a demon, and after the fight, Yu appears, another of the blue group. She then reveals the second demon, and the first that was slain rises again. Yu explains that as long as one remains alive, the other will come back, and you can play with them for as long as you like. The party then defeats both of the demons at the same time with the help of the mysterious man, who frightens Yu into retreating. Reporting back to Edea, Eri makes a note that Yu reminded her of Edea, at least in looks. Ivy Beth Brage, the Pope of the Orthodoxy, calls on the duo for a super secret mission. Delivery person. She wants some sweets, booze, and food delivered to Templar Brave Lee on the shores of Lake Sumase Masaya. Eri is greatly surprised by this, since Brave was previously charged with an attempted assassination of Iglia. Ivy Beth claims the package is just a sign of friendship to one who once ruled a nation. At the arranged location, Heinkel is also there and rifles through the goods, very excited about them. Alternus is a bit more cautious, thinking it may be a trap of some sort. Brave asks if there was a message from the Pope, and after Eri relays, "Are there any changes?" Brave explains that she's probably just telling him to be careful. He also says that being in this lakeside house that Edea set up for him has been calm, but boring. Heinkel then jokes that it'd be nice to have all 5 of the Duchy swordsmen together for a drink, and suddenly Kami, Zumi, and Kint arrive. Kint apologizes to Brave, saying that he's changing now as a person, and felt before that he didn't deserve to stand before the Grand Marshal. Brave says that was never the case. Now that they are all together, though, the 5 swordsmen wish to do battle with you. After a long and difficult fight, the swordsmen all relax and share drinks with each other. Returning to Ivy Beth, she thanks you and is glad the Templar is well, and announces that the same foods have been prepared for you. She then pauses to say something else, but changes her mind and leaves you. Sakuya is an official known as the Momoaki, and needs help getting the city guard and Aoi no Otome to get along. The entire reason they are fighting comes from when Sakuya received the position in the first place. Both groups made her sweets, but when she wouldn't eat either, the 2 groups started insulting each other's sweets, which grew into the current conflict. The reason she wouldn't eat is that she is on a diet. Eri proposes that the 2 groups have a bake-off in an abandoned temple, with the loser having to listen to the winning group. Both sides agree, and Steina bakes for the city guard, while Sakura bakes for the Aoi no Otome. The judges are announced: Holly White, Verda Luzin of the Forestry Corps, and a random third woman named G of the Blue Group. Eri is shocked when she sees G, but G explains that Eri's staff let her in. She then goes on about how under the temple there was a cave with a shrine she was looking for. G then admits to waking up a demon beast and having it chase her back to the surface, at which moment it breaks through the floor as G takes off. The battle and post-match dessert eating allows the two groups to reconcile and recognize that they are both different but can complement one another. After telling Sakuya what happened, she reveals that she was supposed to be the mystery third judge. Seleno and Maya then appear, and after hearing about the troubles that Sakuya has caused, decide to punish her with making her eat all the dishes the two groups prepared, as well as enforcing her exercise routine so she can maintain her weight. Sakuya is crushed and prays for forgiveness. Now it's Lilia's turn to pick out guardians for Crystallica's defense. She decides on the Forestry Corps, as she's a big supporter of theirs and likes how they work. She names off the members she wants, including a new name, Willen. Suddenly, Elva arrives, stating that Willen needs help, and so Lilia sends the duo with him. Arriving at the headquarters of Foresta Saber, they find Willen inside with a plant attached to her head, speaking in strange ways about worshipping the forest while surrounded by vines and ivy. Elva explains he found this plant in a forest recently, and that the plant attaches itself to animals and controls them until it gets to an area ideal for growth, such as having sunlight or being near water, at which point it detaches and sets the animal free. Unfortunately, the plant is absorbing Willen's magic and is growing at an exponential rate. The group fights the plant to remove it, and once it's detached, Willen comes back around. Upon returning to Lilia, Eri reports that she planted the parasitic plant in the Earth Temple's garden, claiming that it poses no threat as long as you don't have immense empathy or magic power like Willen. She also informs Lilia that the plant bears delicious fruit that aristocrats used to trade the fruit's weight in gold for. Seleno and Maya gather the groups organized by the Vestals to make their partnership in the Crystallica Defense Treaty official. The groups do step forward and make the two promise them that they will not be dragged into the current power struggle between the Pope and the Archbishop, that they will only be used to defend Crystallica and all of her people, regardless of power or faction. Seleno and Maya accept this. Maya then asks that the duo go inform Edea immediately about the treaty being made official, since she was particularly concerned on this matter. Eri agrees, and the two leave. While on the way to Windrin, the party comes across members of the Blue Group confronting the mysterious man from before. Eri demands to know why they're bothering him, but when they tell her to leave, combat ensues against D, G, and J. Once they are beaten, the Blue Group retorts how much stronger the player and Eri have gotten. Afterwards they take off, and the duo approaches the mysterious man. Eri asks for the man's name, and he states that he left it behind in the distant past. He then hands the player a treasure chest with no discernible keyhole, and asks that they deliver it to Edea Lee Oblige. Eri asks what's in the box, and the man says that it means nothing to anyone alive, but to those who deceive time and live a vacant life, it would be worth trading everything for. The man also notes how funny the situation is, him trusting a fairy with the box, considering he was deceived by one in the past. He then takes his leave. When they meet with Edea, they give her the box and explain everything. Edea seems troubled by this and can't seem to believe the man's words about a deceiver of time. Eri also asks if Edea was ever done wrong by a fairy. Hilarious. On Notatsuko Beach, an island that is summertime all year long, the Flower Knights want the duo's help in dealing with perverts eyeing up girls on the beach. You and Eri approach a group of guys with a video camera and get into a fight with them, but then they reveal that they're part of the marine research group from the Magic Academy and have been filming sea creatures. Eri confiscates the camera and sends them on their way. Melope calls for the duo to check up on Edea, who has been acting strangely. She hasn't been eating all her meals the last few days and has been gorging herself on knowledge in the library, endlessly searching through the books for something. When you visit her, she's mumbling about what she's reading. It seems to be themed around the separation of ground from Luxendark rising into Crystallica, but then turns to you and asks for help with something else, catching a book thief. Going to a secondhand bookstore, Edea confronts a bad priest who has been stealing works from the temple library and selling them. After battling the store workers, it's revealed that the store is a front for a black market smuggling job, and the priest was just trying to make some more cash on the side, not knowing it was a smuggling place. Edea still arrests him anyway. Afterwards, Edea is still heavily invested in her research, saying, "Agnes, I'll definitely find it." Lilia has been eyeing a creepy old mansion to live in for her own sake of privacy and wishes for the duo to accompany her. Walking through the place, it seems to be haunted, but Lilia loves it. Suddenly, in a back room, Lilia goes blind. A man steps out from the darkness and explains that it's a curse for people who enter the castle that aren't welcome. A battle ensues, and the duo are victorious. Lilia demands to know where the enemy is, and when Eri tells her to hide due to her blindness, Lilia refuses, protesting that Lilia de Rosso Oblige does not hide. The man repeats her name, seeming to realize what this means, and suddenly his demeanor changes to one of calmness. The man says that the curse will lift with time, but only grow more painful if Lilia rubs her eyes. He then states that he is glad Lilia is not lonely in the world, and apologizes, never wishing to cause the trio pain. The duo lead Lilia out of the mansion, but as soon as Eri turns back, the mansion has disappeared. Back at the temple, Tegate enters with a portrait Lilia commissioned. When seen by Eri, Lilia reveals that the man in the painting is her ancestor, Lester de Rosso, the man they saw in the mansion. Asterope, servant to the water vestal, tells the duo that a secret meeting is being held between Curie and the Archbishop Rowan Crystalia V in a private residence near Lake Faranui. Not even Maya is aware of this meeting. Asterope also informs them that Iglia sends spies out to each of the other factions for information, and that the consequences of her learning about this meeting could be bad. As a guard would be too obvious, Asterope asks that the duo listen in on the meeting. In their conversation, Rowan tells Curie that she came personally because she cannot promise that the temple would offer complete secrecy for their talk, and that the Pope cannot know of it. Before the duo can listen in, however, the duo bumps into a group of spies, Laura, Belial, and Shun Suk, who were also beneath the floor to hear the conversation. After a fight erupts, the spies take off, and Rowan thinks she hears something. Curie returns the Archbishop's attention to their talk by asking if what she just said was true. Rowan reminds Curie of how they escaped the last catastrophe on Luxembourg, then says that up here in the clouds, they will not be able to escape the next one, and that the Crystal Orthodoxy must protect Crystallica at any cost. Curie hesitantly says she understands, but when Rowan follows it up with saying that she'll have to ask Lilia next if Curie can't do it, the water vestal goes silent. After the meeting, Asterope tells the duo that whatever Curie was told has perturbed her greatly, and that she has sealed herself away, even drinking to cope. The duo confront Fire Vestal Iglia about her spying on the meeting with the Archbishop. She claims they have no proof of that, and that every Vestal spies on each other, including Curie. When Eri points out that she never said the meeting was between the Archbishop and Curie, Iglia is caught out. Eri demands to know what her spies reported to her on what Rowan said, but before she can tell her, a Temple of Fire guard arrives with urgent news. A fire has broken out in the temple laboratory. Inside, a fire creature they were testing with had broken free. Eri asks why they do such dangerous research, and Iglia replies that if one never prepares for the worst, they'll fall when it comes. The duo defeats the fire creature, and Electra offers clean clothes and other comforts as ordered by Iglia. Eri still wants to talk with the Fire Vestal, but she's nowhere to be found. Later, Iglia is speaking with Ivy Beth, the Pope. She seems to be informing Iglia of the Archbishop's intentions. When Iglia asks Ivy Beth what she should do, the Pope tells her not to cause a turmoil and just be patient for now. She also says that the good guys may do something that will be beneficial to them. Dione wants to hold a meeting for the Akira group, but because she's 200 years old, she fears that the place she chooses won't be hip enough for the younger members. Therefore, she wants the duo to go check out a new seafood restaurant in town. The place is operated by Barbarossa, Barris Lair, and Praline a la mode. They argue a fair amount and don't always get the right orders out to the customers, but after battling the duo, they come together as comrades. They also drag you and Eri along for drinks. Celaeno calls on the duo to go investigate a supposedly hidden mansion where Duke Geleg was hiding, the person behind an assassination attempt on the Archbishop. Aerie complains of her sore throat from the night out previously, and Celaeno offers her concoction to soothe it. It works instantly, and Celaeno said the treatment was a favorite of the first Momoaki. At the mansion, the duo don't find any signs of the Duke, but they do encounter G, who just happened to be there as well for no reason. Demon beasts appear, and when Aerie calls them thus, G scolds her, saying they didn't want to be demon beasts. After fighting them off, G leaves. Reporting back, Aerie pulls out the video orb she got from the Marine Research Group to show a recording of G. Celaeno is shocked as she claims that G looks very similar to the first Momoaki, Uzume, who never had children. Edea is still heavily invested in scouring the Wind Temple library for answers. When she still can't find any answers, she decides to go check the Central Temple's library and has the duo tag along to help her. After staying up late with no success, Edea invites them to come with her to a late-night store for some food. As they make their way there, the three are set upon by three ninjas, Madra, Morin, and Emeralda, who attempt to kill Edea. The Wind Vestal is weak from not eating the last few days, and so the duo has to fend off the attack. They succeed in the end, and Edea has the three turned over to local authorities. After returning to the Wind Temple and telling Melope what happened, Aerie further explains that the Inquisitor they handed the three ninjas over to turned out to be fake, and neither he nor the ninjas have been found since. Lilia calls on the duo's aid as she heads into Voe's swamp to pick a water lotus for Curie, who has still been in a depressive state. In the swamp, the duo fend off a water dragon, and Lilia gets down deep into the mud to safely pluck the lotus to keep it from dying. Lilia and the duo go straight to Odina to deliver the flower to Curie. When they arrive, Lilia recalls a story to Curie of when the water vestal once told her how the water lotus roots spread deep into the mud, and the dirtier the water, the more purified and beautiful the flower will become, and that this is how the shrine maidens must also be. This memory sparks a smile from Curie, and she thanks Lilia for the gift. After they leave, Curie speaks to herself of how she cannot let Lilia become involved in this mud, and that the girl might even hate her for what she's doing in the future. The Dragon Busters come to the Wind Temple to visit Edea, who they've heard is still deep in research. Though she is busy, the duo receive the message that the mysterious man was spotted in a distant village on the former Eternian mountain range. When the duo arrive, they are told by the village elder that the man was indeed there and fended off a great monster with his massive sword. Then he stayed for 3 nights and left with his companion who, while being bad-mouthed and erratic, fixed the village's water wheel and made it run better than ever. Back in Ignis, Cheryl and Delil ask why Iglia sent the Dragon Busters to visit Edea, to which she claims she didn't want the Wind Vestal knowing she was involved. After they leave, Iglia debates her next move. While in the main city, the duo and the Aoi no Otome witness a massive group of mercenaries forming outside of the main Crystal Temple, claiming that they are ready to make a shrine maiden their enemy. Their organizer is showing up soon, so the duo battles the group. Afterwards, Iglia arrives and reveals herself as the organizer, as she is preparing for if she needs to fight against the other Vestals. The Aoi no Otome can't do anything about this since they do not have jurisdiction in this area. Meanwhile, word of this display has reached Roanne's ears through Maya. When Maya offers to send a message to the Pope, Roanne declines, deciding to hold off on any action, wanting to see what Iglia is up to. Edea calls the duo to the Wind Temple as she has made a discovery related to Group Blue. All of the ruins they have been visiting are 200 years old. Therefore, it is assumed that someone may have left something in one of these ruins for the future, and Group Blue is searching for it. There is another ruin they haven't been to yet, a place called Brigid Shrine in the Mukosuke Valley. Aerie proposes they get there first to encounter Group Blue again. Sure enough, E and J are at the site, and E seems bitter about losing the box to the mysterious man. Aerie confronts them, and battle ensues. After beating them yet again, E loses it and is about to unleash some great magic spell, but is interrupted by Ominous Crow coming out and asking what is going on. E seems to recognize Ominous, but can't get the words out from shock. Group Blue flees, and the duo talk to Ominous. He has been living in Rigid Shrine ever since Barrislair abandoned his massage therapy store that he'd set up there. Ominous has been holding on to a book he left. Aerie also points out a picture of Bahamut on the wall, and Ominous claims he drew it. Returning to Edea, she is disappointed that nothing really came of the venture, but she recounts her time under Ominous's command, as well as feeding food to Bahamut. The duo goes to Sakuya at her request to save her from her continuing exercise punishment, currently being conducted by Alcone. In exchange for getting her out of exercise duty, Sakuya offers to answer their questions about the first Momoaki, and only if they get her out. Eventually, they slip Sakuya away to a cake shop, where she enjoys some sweets while telling Aerie about the history of the Momoaki. The role of the Akira in the first place was to give directivity to the power of the crystals, whereas the Vestals are the ones who create that power in the first place through prayer. Sakuya relates this to cakes. If eggs, wheat, milk, and sugar are the components that make crystals power, and the Vestal is the chef, then the Akira are the measuring devices. In the past, there were priests who would do the same thing in the temples, but now, with such a heavy reliance on crystals everywhere in Crystallica, the Akira were founded to do this job. The first Momoaki was chosen at this time too, Uzume, a summoner that existed about 150 years ago. Uzume was said to be so powerful that she had mastered the ability to summon Amaterasu. Uzume also worked with Georges to create the summoning ritual, assumed to be how characters are brought back from the past. Suddenly, Alcone appears, knowing Sakuya would come to the shop, and drags her back to her duties. Edea has taken off alone to investigate another new set of ruins in search of Anya's, so Melope asks that the duo hurry after her to make sure she's okay. When they catch up, Edea is being escorted by Curie and her subordinates, as the ruins are within the Water Temple's jurisdiction. When Edea asks how much further, Curie says it's only a little more, to which Edea shoots back that she may as well have her killed now. Aerie is taken aback by Edea's words, which prompts the Wind Vestal to reveal the truth. It was Curie who had tried to have Edea killed back in the city previously, as ordered by the Archbishop. Edea suggests that the order was given because the Dysnomia overheard her say unsavory things, but when she asks Curie for the reason, she says she can't answer. Edea asks if her death will somehow save Crystallica, and Curie confirms this before beginning battle with her. With Curie defeated, Edea compliments her on how loyal her subordinates are. Curie doesn't understand, saying every other Vestal is more charismatic than herself. She goes on to say that Edea could lead an army of millions, which Edea states she did something similar in the past. Curie claims this is why she must kill Edea, and that after she was dead, Curie would kill herself. Aerie tells Curie that she's no match for Edea and pleads for her to stop, but Curie's resolve is unshakable, and she attacks again. Edea strikes her down, but informs her subordinates that it was non-lethal. Edea then plans to go into hiding, avoiding the Temple of Wind. Back at the temple, Melope is informed by Wally that Iglia and her forces are invading Windrun. Melope calls for a defense of the land, and to hold out until Edea returns. A meeting is held between the members of the Crystallica Defense Treaty, and they decide not to intervene in the current situation in Windrun. Edea is hiding out in the instrument warehouse of the Crystal Orchestra. She suspects that Iglia may be after the box that the mysterious man gave to her, and wants to get it out of the temple, but all transport in and out of Windrun has been blocked. Aerie then recalls a secret passage she saw Edea using once to get out of work, and proposes using that to obtain the box. Following the passage, the duo meets with Melope, and pass along a message from Edea that she is fine, before grabbing the box and heading out. As they try to escape, however, a few of Iglia's mercenaries spot them and want the box, so a fight erupts. They are easily beaten, but then Dee appears and demands the box. Before he can do anything, however, Iglia uses Faraga on him, and this time it seems to actually have an effect. She asks if Aerie has the box, and then proclaims that everything is going as planned as she lets the duo escape. Dee challenges Iglia to see whose fire is stronger, but then Iglia calls him by his full name, DCM2552. Surprised by this, he accepts her invitation to see someone who wants to meet him. With the box brought to safety, Edea believes that it is the center of everything that is going on. Iglia calls for the duo, as she wishes to make them a messenger. She does not want the innocent Cillians of Windrun to suffer, and as such is offering to have a truce to allow a convoy deliver supplies into Windrun, as well as allow any who want out to escape. Reporting back to Edea, she agrees to this, and also plans to sneak inside to check up on her troops and boost their morale. As the caravan approaches Windrun, Iglia's mercenaries stop the carriage, and Iglia demands an inspection of the supplies, knowing that Edea is on board. This turned out to be her plan all along, to lure Edea out, but not to kill her. Instead, Iglia explains that the blockade was done to protect Windrun from the Archbishop, as the Pope made Iglia aware that Roanne wants Edea dead. When Edea asks why the Archbishop wants her dead, Iglia says that her existence is key to the return of the Demon King. Edea seems familiar with this foe. Iglia goes on to explain that the Archbishop cannot stop the danger to come, and that the Pope wants to bundle everyone together. Aerie asks if this means killing the Archbishop, and when Iglia confirms this, the fairy denies her, saying that she likes the other Vestals just the same. Iglia grows frustrated and tries to punish Aerie. After the battle, Iglia is surprised by the outcome, and orders that the convoy continues to the city to deliver its supplies. Aerie asks Edea about the Demon King, and she explains that it is a general term for the incarnation of destruction that came from the Starfrost 200 years prior, and that if the Demon King returns now, it will destroy Crystallica. With Iglia's actions deviating from the Pope's original intentions, Edea wishes for the duo to secretly visit the Pope and get her to stop Iglia from attacking the Archbishop and the other Vestals. At a secret meeting, Ivy Beth is meeting with Group Blue about an island that will be rising up from Luxendark soon. Jay calls it Maujima. The group seems to mistrust Ivy Beth about something, but she promises things will be fine. After they leave, Ivy Beth calls for Aerie to come out, knowing she was there. Aerie demands to know the truth, and Ivy Beth asks if she's sure, for once one knows the truth, they can no longer be a bystander in the situation. Aerie accepts that, but Ivy Beth still wishes for her to prove she can handle the truth through combat. After losing, Ivy Beth explains that the catastrophe that destroyed Luxendark and made it uninhabitable was explained away by the Crystal Orthodoxy as being caused by a natural disaster. But the truth is that it was caused by the invasion of the Demon King that came from beyond the stars. It was so powerful, it even destroyed the crystals, and it's still destroying the world to this day. On top of that, the Demon King is currently unbeatable, and the people of Crystallica can run no further in the skies. As well, resources are depleting and the population cannot continue to be supported like this forever, which means needing to defeat the Demon King, and thus was the purpose of the Crystal Guard, Group Blue. They were created long ago by the Orthodoxy to battle against the Demon King, and now the island where the devil was sealed away on is beginning to rise towards Crystallica. As the duo enter Petrania, they find many groups of refugees. Eric, one such refugee, explains that he's actually from Ignis, as both Windrun and Ignis citizens were afraid of a full-on war between their nations. As for Odina, Curie is currently silent and not getting involved in the situation. Lilia approaches the duo and asks them for help guarding supply convoys as they try to take in the refugees, and they agree. On the road, the caravan is attacked by bandits, but Yu of the Crystal Guard appears and kills some of the bandits. Eric thinks he recognizes the woman as Amarada, an ancient warrior of great repute, and she takes off. Once the duo returns, Lilia asks if they will go to Odina and check on the ill Curie. Astrop tells the duo that Curie has not left her room and continues to drink endlessly in seclusion, likely to subdue the guilt of trying to kill Edea. She goes on to state that it isn't necessarily a danger to Curie's health, considering her abundance of power over water to balance out the alcohol, but she hasn't been eating either, and the Vestal mumbles in her sleep, "I'm sorry, forgive me." Reporting this to Edea, she suggests grabbing a specific kind of alcohol known as Hachiryu Killer, something so strong that it would break through Curie's water protection and make her drunk, or at least affect her somehow. The only place they can obtain it, though, is from the Temple of Fire, but it is currently defenseless because of the blockade movement. Inside the temple, the duo find a few of Iglea's forces getting drunk on the stores of the temple, and end up fighting the drunk souls. Eri then finds the bottle of Hachiryo Killer and delivers it to Kyuri. She comes out of the room gagging at the burn. Now with her in a compromised state, Eri tells Kyuri a message from Edea, that she is forgiven, and that Edea too once did something she thought was right, only for it to nearly end the world. But after that, Edea decided to live on and carry her sins, so that meant that Kyuri could do it too. Kyuri accepts the words and begins to pick herself up, asking for a meal and a hot bath to rid herself of the alcohol. Kyuri explains that the Crystal Guard cannot fight the Demon King because it was sealed away, therefore depriving them of the opportunity to fight it. Now they want to break the seal, and Edea is the key. That is why Roanne wanted her dead. If the key was lost, the Demon King would never break free. Changing subjects, Kyuri wants the duo to head back to Petrania and try to help with the refugee crisis. Arriving at the Temple of Earth, Eri learns that Lilia has been summoned by the Archbishop for a mediation between the Ignis and Windrun forces, and hurries to get to the meeting spot first. Once they get there, Eri begs Roanne not to tell Lilia about Kyuri's attempt on Edea's life. Roanne says that is not possible, as she is about to ask Lilia to be the next assassin. When asked why, she challenges the duo to battle, as she heard the Pope did. When defeated, Roanne states that the box is the key to freeing the Demon King, and that it can only be opened by something called a lost asterisk. In the past, it was an asterisk that was only possessed by those with the absolute strongest of will. Before the catastrophe, its existence was questioned, and in the years after, some tried to craft one. She then explains that Edea herself is an incarnation of the Lost Asterisk, and that no matter her intention, she could open the box. Roanne then goes on to say that the Crystal Guards are too dangerous if Edea is alive. What if they take hostages until Edea chooses to break the seal? The Archbishop is willing to sacrifice 1,000 to save 1,000,000, and all of Crystallica, and she's more than willing to end Edea if it saves 1,000. Roanne also states that once Kyuri or Lilia kills Edea, she will take the blame and resign as Archbishop, giving the seat to one of them. A voice protests against this, and everyone turns to see Lilia step out of hiding, before crying and running off, knowing what Roanne wanted of her. Eri then lets the Archbishop know that Kyuri was hurting herself with booze over what she made her do, and Roanne only repeats that it was all for the good of Crystallica. After being told about the Lost Asterisk, Edea speculates that it could be the Emperor Asterisk, which would grant one the power to wage a war of rebellion on the entire world. She then suggests they go speak with her father, Brave Lee. Maybe the Pope sent that gift to see if he had the Asterisk in the first place. Arriving at Brave's residence, they find Alternus being confronted by Dysnomia Inquisitors, who are accusing him and Brave of attempting to assassinate Iglea. Eri protests this is a lie, but the Inquisitors are not keen to listen and attempt to seize them. They obviously fail, but the fight is a draw. Just then, Brave arrives and tells them that he knows they are bending the law, and that if they wish to take him away, they're going to have to fight him. The Inquisitors retreat. Eri then asks Brave about the Lost Asterisk, and he says that he heard this term before from the old man who made them, likely Sage Juliana. The name of the asterisk was similar to Marshal or Emperor. When Edea finds out, she seems upset, which increases when Eri suggests she could lead the entire world. Instead, the Windvestal claims that had the catastrophe not occurred, that she would be the devil of her era. She then asks for some time alone to think. Lilia Oblige is still deep in despair at the reveal of the Archbishop's plans, and nothing seems to be cheering her up. Before the duo can come up with a solution, a bat flies through the temple window and leaves a message on the wall for them to come to Dondo Hill. At the location, Eri finds Lester De Rosso, Victor, and Victoria waiting for them. They immediately battle the duo, and when they lose, Lester gives them a letter for Lilia, then claims that seeing Lilia in that state makes him angry, like a father for his sad daughter. When Lilia is given the letter, she recognizes the seal and opens it to begin reading. It was a letter of encouragement from Lester, telling her not to give up her humanity and that she was too young to sink into despair. To press forward with her pain was the way of the De Rosso name. This emboldens the Devoso heir, and she immediately recovers, demanding to know everything that has been going on. After informing Lilia about the Demon King's situation, she suggests they meet up with Curie and form an alliance of earth and water against Iglia. As they go to Odina, they are ambushed by Iglia's forces. Upon reaching the Temple of Water, Curie has done some research into the Crystal Guards and has made a shocking discovery. The information they were based on was fictional. A summoner summons people based on information about them from the past, and the more detailed the information, the more powerful the people are when summoned. So, with info as sophisticated as the real thing, people could be created from nothing. Some of the Crystal Guard were modeled after certain people in the past. Curie is still not sure why they weren't used yet in the actual battle, though. Now the group has to find a way to inform the temple and stop the Crystal Guards. After relaying the new info to Edea, Ares states that they have no idea where the Demon King's island will appear from. Edea then calls out to Seleno, who is listening in nearby. She reveals that Maujima is now at a visible altitude, and that Jay has had an effect on the Pope's hastiness through being a strong negotiator. The group realizes that since one would need to stay in Crystallica to fight the Demon King, the Crystal Guard's next move would be to take control of the Anchor Obelisk and make a run for it. J and G clear out the site of guards just as the duo arrives, but before they can stop the guards, the demon beasts from Gelig's villa appear. After the battle, one of the beasts seems to whisper for death. Jay explains that the demon beasts are the failed experiments to create Crystal Guards, and that there are hundreds of them. Jay then leaves with G and the ejection device of the Anchor Obelisk. Maujima has risen, and demon beasts are growing more violent across Crystallica. The roads are splintered and broken, and new monsters are popping up out of the miasma that the Dark Island is releasing. A meeting is held amongst the Crystallica Defense Treaty members, but the main temple has no plans for action at the moment. The duo go out to a village to defend it against demon beasts, but afterwards Aerie is poisoned and near the brink of death. Just in time, Holly White appears to heal her, along with Barris Lair and the Jackal. They talk for a while, with Holly concluding that in the past, they did bad things too, and the Orthodoxy, with all their power, did nothing when Brave Lee's hometown was being ruined by the Great Plague. When recounting this to Edea, she decides that there's only one course of action for her to take: to give up her position as the Vestal of Wind. At the main temple's gates, civilians are begging to be let inside. Ivy Beth approaches the crowd of people and is informed by Seleno that Edea has made an appearance. The people beg for the Wind Vestal's aid, but Edea has an announcement to make. She publicly renounces her position as the Vestal of Wind, refusing to be part of a system that won't help its own people, and choosing to protect them as just Edea Lee. Both Rowan and Ivy Beth are outraged by this and demand that the Black Knights and the Blanca Corps seize her. The duo and Edea fend them off with their immense strength. Edea then states that she has no intention of destroying the Orthodoxy, but she will not recognize their ways any longer. She rallies the crowd in her favor, despite renouncing her position as Vestal. One by one, the various groups of the Defense Treaty side with Edea, wanting to protect Crystallica no matter what. Edea then asks for complete authority over Crystallica so she can organize everything correctly to ensure its survival. Rowan declares it a coup d'etat, but Edea doesn't care. Ivy Beth, however, recognizes that Edea was very similar to her predecessor, Borea, and gives her the power she requests. Edea states that she used to be afraid of becoming a tyrant again, but that to have power and not act on it was just condemning her lay into oblivion. And so, she will fight the Demon King. Edea immediately begins commanding the Orthodoxy soldiers, letting all the refugees into the temple and placing the armies around to defend against the demon beast's attacks. She then turns to the duo and claims that she needs them to go to Maujima and destroy the Anchor Obelisk. If this is done, then the island will begin to rise again and the miasma will pass over Crystallica. Upon reaching the island, they meet Dee, and Aerie tries to convince him that their plan is wrong. Dee responds that he may be flawed, considering Patel made him. When Aerie asks what he means, Dee explains that the scientist who made him was named Patel, a disciple of Georges, though he was of lesser skill and made many mistakes, before finally figuring out the fatal flaw in making crystal guards and disappearing into the forest. Aerie then asks why he thinks he can win, and Dee responds by asking why she thinks winning is their goal. Before he can elaborate, the rest of the Crystal Guards show up. Dee states that he cannot die, and that they were made 200 years ago in the basement of the Gellig Villa. They also reveal that they have had one single purpose for their entire existence, and they cannot wait any longer to fight the Demon King. The battle ensues, and the Crystal Guards are defeated. Dee is surprised that someone other than the Demon King was able to beat him. Unfortunately, J and E reveal their failsafe. There was a crack in the barrier seal on the Demon King, from which the miasma poured, and the anchor obelisk was thrown inside of it. So if the duo wants to break the anchor, they have to release the Demon King now. The lines are beginning to falter against the demon beasts, and to make matters worse, Edea gets a report that Iglea's forces are headed for the temple, not in support, but to clear out the rebel. Eri suggests that you two go to deal with her. As Iglea's army moves, she encounters monsters from the miasma, and the duo help defend against them. Towards the end of the battle, Alternus and Ominous appear to help out, with Curie and Lilia showing up not long after. They ask that Iglea disarm herself and come talk with Edea. She does so unwillingly. Edea asks why Alternus is here, and he explains that Brage sent everyone out to fight on the front lines, explaining the report of morale increase. Edea then asks Iglea for her aid, and when she first refuses, saying that Edea has betrayed the Orthodoxy, Curie hits her, stating that the Pope authorized this state of affairs. The group fights for a bit more to make Iglea less stubborn, and finally she gives up and joins forces with them. Then Eri comments on Edea's chest, to which Edea says it's nothing like Iglea's, but it's perfectly average, before she notices the light coming from it. Alternus also says he cares not for size but for form. Edea tells him to shut up. The light coming from Edea makes her wonder how to turn it into an asterisk. Seleno, who's responsible for asterisks, only knows how to combine and retool them, but not how to make a completely new one. Then, E arrives and reveals that she is ready to fight the Demon King. She then reveals her true form, that of a Dagon like Bahamut, which Ominous believes is his pet. It's likely that E's model was that of Bahamut's ancestor. E prompts Edea to open the box, who is still hesitant, but Eri promises that everyone will be there to help her in battle. Edea commands the box to open, but instead of simply opening, it forms into a circle, and out is summoned a familiar face, Magnolia Arch. Elsewhere, E returns to the Crystal Guards and tells them it's time to fight. The Magnolia that emerged from the box is a data copy, similar to the Crystal Guards. She was deployed when the box was opened to help aid in the Demon King's defeat. She reveals that it exists across multiple dimensions, and therefore all means of defeating it wouldn't work. However, through using the Martial Asterisk, Edea could concentrate the will of all of Crystallica and force the Demon King to exist in this one dimension, granting the party enough time to fight it. As Edea prays, the party prepares to do battle with the Demon King. Oh yes, did I forget to mention that Demon King is the direct translation term for the ball? In this case specifically, Baal the First, Turtle Dove. The party continues the battle and slays the Baal in the end, but shortly after they come across the Crystal Guards. Their thirst was never to defeat the Demon King. The Baal had rewritten their codes surrounding the Devil attribute to make them become Demon Kings. But before the fight can begin, the mysterious man arrives to deny their plan, along with Kamer. A second battle ensues, and eventually all five are defeated, with only G still slightly alive. The man speculates that the models of the guards being righteous people may have aided in making these Demon Kings beatable. As G disappears, she wishes she had a real name instead of GMF0000. Kamer suggests Laetris, a kind of flower, and she accepts it before passing. The copy Magnolia also begins to disappear with her job being complete, but not before leaving Edea with a message. Waiting. She remembers that there are others still waiting for her out there, but when she turns to Alternus to thank him for his help, he is gone. Afterwards, the people begged for Edea to return to the position of Wind Vestal, and because of her success, the only punishment she was given after her coup was having to deal with all of the paperwork. She wonders why the man had a box to give her, or how she knew how to call upon the martial asterisk, but those were mysteries for another day. While helping Edea and Melope with some book carrying in the Temple of Wind, Aerie comes across a document written by the previous Wind Vestal, Borea. Both Edea and Melope are shocked by this, as all of Borea's work was confiscated before Edea came to fill the position. The document refers to a 99th hidden room, which Melope suggests Borea used to avoid work regularly, much like Edea does. Since Edea has to stay while the book carrying is being done, the duo head out to check out the place. When they arrive at the location of the hideout, some mysterious soldiers are already looting the cave. A battle ensues, and during the scuffle, Aerie fights over a book with one of the soldiers until it tears, leaving each side with one half of the book. Afterwards, they take off. Returning to Edea, she skims through the document, but can barely understand what it's about. Borea was supposedly a scholar before she was a Vestal, so Melope suggests that it may be her research notes. Edea then reaches a section on considerations on fluctuations in space-time, and it makes note of the infamous space-time compass. Edea wonders why Borea knows of this. Iglea invites the duo out into the forest, where they are attacked by demon beasts. Once victorious, they hear Iglea's voice from above, on board the Ceremoniage, Crystallica's largest, and only, flying restaurant reserved for VIPs. As they wait for the food to arrive, Aerie asks why they had to meet in the middle of the forest. Iglea said that it was to ensure no one would want to follow, and then announces that someone is here to meet them. Pope Ivy Beth joins them at the table, scolding Iglea for being too brash yet again with her approach, and has dinner with the group. She states how it feels good to eat with others. Eating alone all the time has made her forget that she was human too occasionally. She also states that being on a pillar, like her job requires, does that to someone, and that though Edea's previous actions hurt her, she knew that giving her command at that time was the right move because Ivy Beth herself could not act. Lilia has recently been on an artistic fervor, painting on the walls of the Temple of Earth. Her art is a little mortifying, and if not fixed soon, people may mistake the temple for a place of dark intentions. Tagare sends the duo after the Artista, who can fix the place up. Upon finding a member of the Artista, Aaron, the duo find that she has been arrested by the Forestry Corps. Aaron was messing around and ruined a stone that was part of a warding spell to keep monsters out. In fact, she sculpted it into the shape of a monster, and the magic of the stone itself caused it to attract more monsters to the region. Aerie tells the Corps that they need Aaron, and the artist comes up with a solution. As Aerie and the player defend Aaron from demon beasts, she sculpts a new statue, one of a hunter to protect the woods, that she names Goddess of Tomahawk. It seems to keep the beasts away, but Melosa points out something at its feet: pancakes. Aaron explains that she based the statue on an old legend, and apparently pancakes were a favorite of this hunter. Mika, the leader of Artista, approaches the duo afterwards and apologizes for Aaron causing trouble, and thanks them for their assistance. Aerie then asks where she could find Rosanna, and Mika says that she hasn't seen her companion in about a month since Rosanna tends to travel around. She does say that Rosanna doesn't travel that far, so Aerie suggests they look around the city. In town, the group stops at a restaurant where the food is fantastic. Rosanna suddenly comes around the bar, and Mika asks why she's working there. Vega appears and explains that Rosanna came a little while ago and ate way more than she could pay off, so she's been working to pay off her tab. Mika offers to pay the bill, but Vega has an alternate solution. She's had trouble getting her hands on Galband bonitos. The duo head out to sea to catch some, fending off an aquatic monster in the process. With Rosanna and Aaron in tow, the duo takes them to the Temple of Earth to redesign the temple. Unfortunately for Tagare, the two artists love Lilia's work, and the three quickly become fast friends over their love for art. Bumping into the mysterious man, Eri thanks him for his previous help with the ball threat. He says it was no problem and that the fight was beneficial for him too. Eri then says the duo are to help him anytime he needs, and the man mentions that he can't seem to find his companion, so Eri offers to help find him. While searching, the duo comes across De Rosa, who seems to be fighting the city guard. When they approach, De Rosa explains that he wasn't fighting the guard, but rather they were protecting him from two other attackers, Mitsuru and Hull, who summoned Shikione to fight for them. After fending them off, Hull calls for retreat to Mitsuru's protest since they hadn't completed the order. Eri demands to know who sent them, but the two take off. Going back to the mysterious man, he seems to have found his comrade. He then laughs and states that Eri reminds the man of his younger brother, who he will never see again. As they depart, De Rosa approaches the man and suggests he invites Eri and the player to his group. The man replies that the idea is encouraging, but that he'd like to avoid getting them involved if possible, as he doesn't want to repeat his mistakes. Curie has heard that the duo paid a visit to Saramage, and desperately wants to try one of their desserts, the Starry Sky Jelly. While Eri admits to not knowing the path of the flying restaurant, Curie suggests looking for a supplier on the ground, since Saramage only uses the freshest of ingredients. On a port, Eri finds Yoon, a Saramage worker, speaking with a fish seller. When the situation is explained, he is more than happy to prepare the Starry Sky Jelly for the water vessel, but he needs help obtaining the ingredients. Leading the duo to a swamp, the three find a demon beast and slay it. Afterwards, Yoon collects the beast's mucus, the main ingredient of the jelly that gives it its texture. Once prepared, Eri delivers it to Curie, who absolutely loves it. She asks what goes into it, but Eri plays it off as being a secret. As the duo arrive at the Temple of Fire, Edea questions them about what they recently found: Borea Mayor Oblige's documents. Eri says they have no idea, and that Edea is still analyzing them. She then asks Edea what Borea was like. Edea reveals that she was once in the position of Akira, like Seleno now, and that at the time, Edea regarded Borea like another sister. She has gone missing, and it's still treated as much officially, but Edea says that in reality, she is de facto dead. Edea also says that Borea left her with a question the last time they met, 3 months prior. Don't you ever feel uncomfortable in this world? Suddenly, there's a loud racket heard in another part of the temple, and the three investigate. They find Jiu, a member of Artista, being held at sword point by Ziz, part of the Rei Daoshi. Jiu was hired to do a mural for the temple and wanted to use Ziz as her model, but Ziz refuses. Edea offers to stand in for Ziz, but Jiu says that she is too old. Ziz then states that if Jiu is really serious, then she must bring her a water crystal from the temple's basement, where monsters dwell. The duo go along with Jiu, but lose her suddenly in the maze of the basement. As they try to find her, they come across a mysterious woman, who doesn't speak. Instead, she merely points in one direction, which the duo follows to the underground lake, where Jiu and the crystal are. A demon beast attacks, it is slain, and the three return above with the crystal. Ziz is shocked about them returning with the crystal, but she cannot touch it. Edea explains that it is because water crystals, or crystal tears, cannot be touched by those who speak falsely. Ziz then admits that the reason she refused to be the model is because she thought she would have to pose naked. Jiu explains that it's done sometimes, but wouldn't be necessary for this job. Ziz is relieved, and then reveals that she was told that lie by De Rosa. A meeting is being held between Roanne, Ivy Beth, and an unknown third party. They are discussing how Edea has her hands on half of Borea's documents, and the other half are in the hands of that man. Roanne asks why Ivy Beth couldn't find them earlier after Borea's disappearance, and Ivy Beth says she couldn't do it thoroughly because of how sudden the event was. Ivy Beth then suggests that this was Borea's plan, since she apparently even knew the reason behind the world. Roanne is confused, so Ivy Beth whispers something to her, which upsets the unknown person. Both apologize for their actions, and then are given an unknown order from the elusive figure. Maya calls for the duo to deliver a message to Edea that the Archbishop wants to see her, on unofficial terms. Arriving at the Temple of Wind, Eri finds Edea and Melope both drunk off their faces. The temple had received a very large donation of sake recently, and they weren't getting through it, so the two had taken to drinking some. Eri tells Edea that the Archbishop wants to see her and drags her out of the temple. On the way there, Edea is very hungover and realizes that she had forgotten her sword, which is throwing off her balance. They all go back to retrieve the sword, but inside the temple they encounter a group of thieves. Combat ensues and the thieves retreat, with the names Charlo and Enric being revealed among the group as they run. Making her way back to the main temple, Edea arrives to meet with Roanne, who wishes to drink a luxury sake with her. Artista member Philine has drunken herself into a stupor over not having access to the right paint to finish painting a shrouded sculpture. Eri offers to go get the rare material to make the paint. Coming across the black stone needed, Eri tries to pick it up only for the attached golem to come to life and attack. Afterwards, Alternus appears and offers to help carry the heavy stone, as it appears to be the will of his goddess Edea. When Philine is given the material, she lightens up immediately and offers to show everyone the sculpture as it currently is. When the cover is lifted, they are all surprised at the female figure it depicts. Philine claims it is based on a painting in one of the temple's treasure houses, and Alternus recognizes it as Agnes. Alternus wants to meet with the duo alone on an abandoned island called Toshika. He asks them how much they know about Edea before elaborating on how she was not summoned to Crystallica and instead traveled from the past 200 years ago to find a girl named Agnes. To prove themselves worthy of knowing the truth, Alternus battles the duo. Once the battle ends, Alternus asks about Boria's document and if it mentioned the space-time compass. When confirmed by Eri, Alternus explains that 200 years prior, a man used the compass to take himself and Agnes into the future, into their current time. This reveal means that Praying Brage fits within the canon of Bravely Default. As this scene confirms, it is the continuation of the universe we witness in Chapter 4 of Bravely Second, the End Layer, a world overrun by the Ball. Because there is only one compass, Edea became ruthless in her search for a way to find Agnes afterwards. She succeeded her father as Grand Marshal, and through world conquest, she achieved the unification of all of Luxendark. Without gathering all the power in the world, Edea never would have achieved time travel. Alternus also explains that Edea inflicted great pain upon herself, traveling across the world and doing battle with great beasts and demons parallel in power to gods, all alone. He speculates that it was likely self-punishment for her actions as a tyrant. Eri then states that they still haven't found a clue to finding Agnes, but Alternus interjects and states that they have met Agnes. She was the mysterious woman the duo encountered in the underground maze while searching for the crystal tear. Alternus then states that perhaps it has started to move, and when Eri asks for clarification, he says he wants to show them something instead. Alternus leads them to a graveyard which had existed on Luxendark before the catastrophe. He recounts how this is where they all met. He tells them that Edea doesn't seem to believe she deserves to go back to her era, but he wants the duo's help in finding a way to get home, to which Eri agrees. Seleno wants the duo to go check on the Magic Research Institute, where they are currently working to replicate the power of the copy Magnolia to try and use it to clear out the Demon Kings on Luxendark's surface so they can return to the ground. Seleno also warns that a new anti-temple group seems to have arisen, and to be careful. Arriving there, the building has been attacked by the very same group Seleno warned of. The duo fend off an attack from Grain, Shannon, and Manon, who appear to be focused not just on fighting, but killing outright, a possible sign that they are an assassin group. Once they retreat, the mysterious man appears, yelling for everyone to get out of the Institute. Shortly after, a bomb explodes. Eri hopes that the man is not involved with the anti-temple group. Later, Ivy Beth is meeting with Seleno about the recent bombing. Ivy Beth refers to the group behind the bombing as Secret Killer and states how cunning they are. She also reveals that she was likely the one that sent the sake to Edea previously. Michelle, a server at Saramage, has been stalked recently by some people. Eri works with the Aoi no Otome to catch them. It turns out to be a group of martial artists known as the Rei Daoshi, Lid, Hyrin, and Tao, who were hoping to learn a lost martial art from Michelle that he learned so he could cut desserts more perfectly. Caillou, another member of the Rei Daoshi, is being stalked by someone. At Curie's request, and with the Flower Knight's help, it is eventually found to be Laker and Ludmilla from the Saramage, who want Caillou's technique in medicinal foods. As an apology, they later send Curie a bonito served with a sauce using the herbs they learned about from Caillou. Dione wishes for the duo to look for a person she used to know from a group known as the Three Wise Men of the Abyss. She gives them a portrait to work with and suggests checking around the Luland forest. As the two search, they come across Jay. When Eri asks how he survived, Jay can't answer before De Rosa, Holly White, Kint, and the mysterious man all appear. The mysterious man reveals himself, finally, to be Kaiser Oblivion, and that he is the leader of the new anti-orthodoxy group, his new Glance Empire. Oblivion explains that the ball was suppressing a second personality in Jay, and when it died, that second person came to the surface. Eri also recognizes that Oblivion wields the martial asterisk, aka the Kaiser, and after Oblivion offers them the chance to join his empire, they leave. Returning to Dione and keeping the Glance Empire's rebirth a secret, she shows another portrait that has her standing as one of the Three Wise Men more than 100 years ago. The person in the middle is Jean Carpentier, but the one on the right is Frank Georges, the man responsible for the summoning system, and he looks exactly like Jay. Edea receives a letter from Oblivion and demands to know just how long the duo has known about the Kaiser being in Crystallica. Eri explains that he only just reveals his identity to us, but then asks how she knows him. Edea states that Oblivion is the man whose actions were the catalyst for the catastrophe, and that he kidnapped Agnes. Edea plans to accept the letter's invitation to meet at the Saramage because he's the last man who would know where Agnes is, and wants the duo to accompany her. She also says that she doesn't know if she can keep her calm, and she may just cut the Kaiser down on sight. On board the Saramage, the three pass the Artista and the Rei Daoshi, who are eating, before reaching Oblivion's table. Edea cuts to the chase and demands to know where Agnes is. Oblivion tells her to forget the past instead, and to live better in this era. He then extends an invitation to join the Glance Empire and help move the needle of time, which she declines angrily. She goes to draw her sword, but then all patrons and workers on board turn against her. They have joined with Oblivion. Before they can capture the party, an airship approaches and Alternus hops onto the Saramage. Edea and the duo fight off the patrons to escape on the airship, while Alternus holds off the Kaiser. Once safe, Edea wants to go save Alternus, and Eri suggests they go visit her father for help. When they arrive, Brave says that Alternus made it back safe and claimed he fell off a cliff, but he also lost his helmet, and so he doesn't want to show his face. Eri wants to get him a gift of sympathy, and Kamizumi suggests they find a mirage melon in the Nomokeda Mountains, which used to be part of Eternia. The duo finds one, fighting off a bird-form demon beast, and delivers it back to Brave. Going back to Edea, Eri gives her half of the mirage melon, as Alternus requested. Edea is pleased since Alternus would bring her melons when she was sick as a kid. Melope sends the duo to Flora's house to pick up the analyzed document of Boreas. It was given to Flora to study because its contents were too complex for them to study, considering Borea was a scholar, a Vestal, a crystal officer, and a time mage. It appears Borea was researching multi-dimensional worlds, as well as exploring the concepts of gods and devils, even though she already had proof of the devils. Borea was also aware of how to defeat said devils by focusing their existence into one world so that the concept of destruction sticks to them, and apparently by defining one's position in multiple dimensions, one could obscure the concept of time. The rest of the document makes reference to the other half, which was stolen, so that is all that could be determined at this time. There is also reference to other volumes, which means there's more of Borea's research out there. An emergency meeting is held between the 4 Vestals, the Pope, and the Archbishop, with Edea taking the position that dealing with Oblivion is of the utmost importance and should be taken as seriously as the emergence of the ball. The others do not seem to take it as seriously as Edea wishes they would, though they are still cautious of Oblivion's actions. Ivybeth tells them all to keep an eye out and report any information. Maya then approaches Aerie and the player, informing them that the Archbishop wishes to see them. Upon meeting with Roanne, she wishes for them to tell her what they think of Oblivion. Aerie states that she also doesn't believe he's a destroyer of the world, but that his group is definitely willing to harm the Crystal Orthodoxy. When Aerie mentions his desire to move the needle of time, however, this catches Roanne's attention, although she does not elaborate. As they leave the meeting while traveling down a road, the duo come across a merchant being attacked by thieves. After fighting them off, Kint appears and puts out a fire set on the merchant's carriage as the thieves were retreating. Kint explains he is here on the Kaiser's orders to defend the outer towns and their people, since the guards have pulled back towards the main temple and do not patrol as often or as far out as they used to, simply to protect the orthodoxy. Iglia calls on the duo to ask how their progress with finding Borea's works have been. When Aerie tells her that they haven't found any others, the Fire Vestal informs them that Borea's ancestors came from the Eisenberg region of Luxendark, and that a segment of that region, one which contained the former Mount Karka, has risen to Crystallica. Reaching the island, the duo are confronted by Charlo and Enric again, who attack them. After the battle, Aerie begins to collapse, and the secret killer assassins explain that it is the toxic fumes of the volcano that have incapacitated her, while they were already controlling their breathing. Before they can finish her though, Holly White appears with Arrow to blow away the fumes, and Esuna to detoxify Aerie. The assassins take off. Holly then says that Oblivion sent her, and that there was something in the former Temple of Fire that he wanted them to have. Returning to Edea, the duo gives her another volume of Borea's work, but they learn that there are still 2 more out there. Edea also recounts her time in the Eisenberg region, where she traveled with Agnes and 2 others. She then corrects herself and says 3 others, seeming to forget about Aerie. Edea begins recruiting tons of people to prepare in case of an invasion from the Glan's Empire. However, her selection criteria is very broad. Edea just allows anyone and everyone to join. To test their strength, however, she pits all the new recruits against the duo, who of course win. Edea is surprised, however, by the hat maker Cyrus being the strongest one of the bunch. When Melope returns to the temple, she states that a signboard was thrown away outside that read, "The First Windren Weirdo Tournament Audition Venue." Edea pretends to have not seen it. Edea sends the duo to ask Curie if she knows anything about the location of Borea's works. She suggests they try the ruins of Florum, since Borea would visit there often. While there, the 2 come across Barris Lair training the Rei Daoshi, with Jackal being dragged into the training. Returning back to Curie, Aerie shows that she found another document in the ruins of the Florum altar, but then wonders why Oblivion would want them to find the documents. Curie suggests that it may be by Borea's will that they find them. Praline a la mode's idol group, Pretty Cakes, is worried about her after she has disappeared on them, seeming to have left the group to dissolve on its own. Aerie offers to go looking for her, since she's so loud it's hard not to find her. Eventually, they are attacked by demon beasts, where De Rosa suddenly appears and helps out using poison on the monsters. Later, they find Praline, who won't give a straight answer why she left them. Eventually, she reveals she thought she could go alone, but in reality, she hates being away from her friends. When De Rosa steps forward, Praline calls him Producer and claims that he convinced her to join the Glan's Empire, the thing she wanted to do alone. The duo meet with Jian, another of the 3 wise men, to talk about Jay. Instead, she is not at liberty to answer, but tells them to ask him themselves. She calls for Jay to come out, sensing him through his magic. He asks for them to call him George, since he no longer has the personality of Jay. George explains that, for some reason, his original self deemed it necessary to create a copy, and so he set to work on making a complete replica, complete with all of his memories and knowledge. With the help of his disciples, after George's death, Jay was created. Before Eri can get an answer as to why George has sided with Oblivion, they are interrupted by the mage Thantum, a member of the snake-crested Rovos party who once served the Duke of Gelug. Defeating him, George goes on to ask Jeanne if she would join the Glan's Empire. She declines, as she also did to the Church 100 years ago. Eri then asks what Oblivion's plan is, and why he is leading them to Boria's works, to which George says to follow to the end, and then a door to truth would be opened. The duo go to ask Lilia about Boria, but unfortunately the missing Vestal only visited Lilia on important matters, not really hanging around Petrania otherwise. However, Lilia does point out that all Vestals who kept a second surname typically were of royal bloodlines: Edea Lee Oblige, Lilia de Rosso Oblige, and Boria Mayer Oblige. Before Lilia will reveal which royalty she believes Boria belonged to, however, she wants something in return. VIP tickets to a special event happening soon in Crystallica, which will have many dancers and singers performing. The duo wait in line for a whole day and night to purchase the tickets, only for people like Schwartz to push to the front, buy the tickets, and then hold them hostage for resale at exorbitant prices. Eri beats up the ticket scalpers, and the customers thank her. When Eri goes to buy a ticket, however, she finds Yon of the Sarah Mange at the desk, who explains that the event is being hosted by the Glan's Empire for the sake of the people. And VIP tickets come with a towel with their logo on it. Delivering the ticket to Lilia, she tells them that the king of Kaldisla had appointed Boria as lieutenant governor of Reconstruction, and to ask Edea for more info. Learning about the concert being sponsored by the Glan's Empire, Edea plans to hold a counter-concert. She wishes to hire the Crystal Orchestra, but though they agree to it, their instruments are in maintenance and the craftsman only likes to work when he feels like it, though he is susceptible to sweets as a bribe. Eri receives a sweet called Mame Daifuku, and the craftsman accepts, hurrying the repair time. Arya also states that the new song the orchestra wants to perform is still being written by another stubborn person, Baron. He claims he can't find inspiration and won't write anything. His servant Dante says there is a number of the Blanca corpse that Baron will do anything for when told to. Apparently she reminds him of someone he once knew and respected or loved greatly. So the duo goes off to hunt down said member on the front lines. Bringing Cornelia back to Baron, she tells him to get to work, and he does. Since Pretty Cakes is the main act of the Empire's concert, Edea wants something similar. She wants to get the three Venus sisters involved, but upon asking, Einherja flat out refuses. To learn the reason, she demands a battle with her sisters, and Ominous, who was just passing by. Afterwards, Eri gets Einherja to sing, but it is so deafening that it knocks out most of the people who listen to it. Returning to the temple with Edea, she finally remembers that Einherja sang for her birthday once, and it knocked out Edea and Kamiizumi, leaving her with no memory of the event. Edea finally comes up with a solution to combat Pretty Cakes, getting Seleno to sing instead. They approach her with the idea, and though she would agree, as a crystal officer, she is incredibly busy and needs a good reason to leave her post to do this. She proposes that if the duo can defeat all of the crystal officers as proof of their commitment, then they may be able to help. After a grueling combat, Seleno accepts, and also gets the rest of the crystal officers on board with performing. Seleno's microphone has broken, and it is one of a kind. The person who could have repaired it passed away a while ago, but before all hope is lost, Kikyo appears with a letter from Kamiizumi, saying he knows someone who could fix it. The duo go to meet him and find Oblivion and Calmer. Oblivion offers Calmer's services as he is a mechanical genius, and he also wishes to mass-produce the microphone afterward. Eri asks why Kamiizumi would invite them to meet with the Kaiser, and he states that Oblivion asked him to join the Empire, though he declined, due to Oblivion drawing his blade against Brave in the past. Calmer uncovers the issue with the microphone. A rare stone within has malfunctioned and needs replacing. Oblivion offers to travel with the duo in search of a replacement. As they walk, Eri asks why Oblivion has been helping them, and he reveals that Boria took care of him when he first arrived in Crystallica from the past. With the stone acquired after defeating a golem, the three return and the microphone is repaired. Oblivion then suggests that the two groups hold their concert jointly, and let the people decide between the Orthodoxy and the Empire at once. When mentioned to Edea, she fully accepts, ready to crush the Kaiser at his own game. It's the day of the event. Eri searches for Edea while the concert takes place, and finds Lilia enjoying herself fully. The Earth Vestal suggests they check the higher VIP seats. Up above, Edea and Oblivion are watching the show together. Oblivion states that he did not kill Alternus the other day, and also returns Edea's sword that she'd lost on the Sarah Mange. She warns him that she may still attack him, and the Kaiser states that he is also armed, but that today is not the day for fighting. Once again, Edea demands to know where Agnes is, but before he can answer, the secret killer assassins appear, having fought their way past all the guards and attempt to kill Edea. Eri and the player arrive just in time to help fend them off, but after they flee again, Edea faints, succumbing to the assassin's poison. Just then, a mage named Mystica appears, a member of the Rovos party. She says that she is not with the other assassins and gives the group an antidote to the poison. Eri gives Edea the elixir and she stabilizes immediately. Mystica takes her leave, but promises to return soon. Oblivion also leaves, but not before reminding Eri that Boria's documents will answer everything, and that they already know where the last one lies. After the music festival, approval for the Orthodoxy and the Empire has increased equally. Edea and Eri discuss where the final document could be. Eri then brings up what Lilia said about Boria being the lieutenant governor of reconstruction in Kaldisla, and Edea remembers. Mayor was the last name of Egil, the canary boy they brought to Kaldisla and who served the king's guard, meaning Boria was his descendant. Edea tears up remembering the city and how it was where she first met with all of her friends. And Eri exclaims that Alternus brought them there previously, the island of Toshika. The duo make for Toshika, but are once again ambushed by secret killer members. But before combat can begin, the Rovos party also appears to back up Eri. The battle occurs, and Eri secures the remaining document, but falls victim to the poison. An unknown person can be heard saying that Edea makes them crazy, and that the wind that marks the end of the world has begun to blow. Eri awakens in the Temple of Wind. Edea assumes that Eri just collapsed upon returning from exhaustion, as there was no evidence of poisoning, but Eri definitely didn't make it back on her own. Either way, all the volumes of Boria's document were in their hands now, save for the missing half of one. Ivy, Beth, and Roanne have a meeting with Edea to discuss her recent behavior. Since she appeared to be getting along fine with Oblivion at the festival, they do not see her warnings as reasonable, and order her to only deal with her duties as Vestal for the time being. Unfortunately, Edea is still missing the other half of the first document, but Gandhar, one of the weirdo recruits, appears and says that he's meeting with someone who claims to have it. The duo go with him to the meeting place, supposedly taking the rest of the document with them. Gandhar then tries to steal it and hands it over to Praline, revealing the invitation was a setup. But Eri smirks and reveals it was too obvious from the beginning, revealing the document brought was actually just Melope's diary. Praline then accidentally reveals that it was the Rei Daoshi who stole the other half, and that the Kaiser is in possession of it. Now knowing that Oblivion has the last part of Boria's document, Edea plans a way to get onto the Sarah Mange. Edea wants the duo to go to Yunohana in search of an ancient airship they could use. Upon arriving there, they encounter the 5 Wisdom Kings, who offer the key to the airship if they are defeated in battle. After beating them, they lead Eri to a bathhouse, where upon inserting the key into the foundation stones, the bathhouse begins to rise. Bringing it back to the Temple of Wind, Eri tells Edea that 200 years ago the bathhouse was apparently ran by a woman named Sakura, whom Edea recalls fondly. With the rub-a-dub ready, Edea and her subordinates, as well as the 5 Wisdom Kings, prepare to invade the Sarah Mange. An aerial chase begins, and soon the Wind Vestal's forces have invaded the restaurant ship. Before any bloodshed occurs though, Oblivion makes an offer, each side sending a few representatives to fight for everyone, and both sides wagering all of their parts of Boria's document. Eri accepts, and Oblivion sends out 5 former members of the Duchy. At the end of the battle, Eri is poisoned again by De Rosso and captured. The 5 Wisdom Kings then hands the Kaiser the rest of Boria's documents. Oblivion tells the Wind Vestal's soldiers to retreat and they will be spared, so they do so. Down in the warehouse on the Sarah Mange, Eri is trapped with a strange man in a loincloth. He acts rather cool for his situation, and when asked about his attire, he states that it is the pinnacle of sexiness. He then states that they should escape, which won't be hard due to this being a restaurant and not a real prison. He points out a small hole that leads outside, and Eri goes through to unlock the door from the other side. The strange man then points out a parachute to use for escape, but claims he must stay for more research. He then says not to lose sight of it, no matter what happens, before taking off. Edea has received information that Oblivion is headed for a small island, and she plans to bring her forces there, as she has orders from the Pope to subdue and capture him. Upon finding Oblivion and George, who are approaching Boria's resting place, Edea calls for her forces to engage, but she is frozen in place upon seeing George's face. The two take off, and Edea apologizes for failing to stop them, stating that upon seeing George, it was as though she remembered something important. Seleno has received intel that Oblivion is returning to the same island again, and sends the duo after him. Upon arrival, George summons the sword-bearing group known as Lion Dance to hold them off while he and Oblivion enter the temple. Beating Lion Dance and chasing the two, Oblivion reveals that they plan to resurrect Boria, who has the near-death knowledge they seek. And thus, Boria Mayor Oblige then returns to the world, and recalls how she was murdered by the secret killer group when they suddenly appear in the room. Boria's magic overwhelms the assassins, and she gives them the chance to leave, which they do. She also states that in the past, if the Crystal Orthodoxy didn't change its ways, then she was ready to destroy it. She then tells Eri that she will be back soon before leaving. Eri reports all this to Seleno, but when she goes to ask about the people who abducted and killed Boria, Seleno states she cannot answer. Eri warns Curie of Boria's return, and Curie makes note of the church's movements once they knew all of Boria's documents had been secured. Eri assumes this to mean that the Pope ordered Boria's death, but Curie rejects that, since it wouldn't make sense for Ivy Beth to send the duo and Secret Killer to the place of her resurrection at the same time. Sheena then appears and states that Boria and Oblivion are fighting their way into the Temple of Water. Eri goes out to confront them, and Oblivion sets Artista upon them while they go inside. Boria confronts Curie after beating the Flower Knights, and says she came to scold her. She claims that Curie is ignoring the truth, and that is tantamount to sin. Curie asks if Boria really thinks she can destroy the new crystals, and the former Vestal says she will make Curie understand before incapacitating her. Now rushing to warn Lilia of Boria's approach, Lilia states that they never really got along super well. When Boria attacks, she takes a moment to speak with Eric, who was the descendant of a knight in the De Rosso household. The Rei Daoshi are sent to fight Eri, who reveal that their master had noticed a disturbance in the stream of the world, but when the master was killed by the Rovos party, they decided to follow Oblivion. Boria approaches Lilia to show her the truth, but then Lester De Rosso appears to try and stop Oblivion. The Kaiser claims that it is a mortal sin to seal the future, but De Rosso retaliates by saying that you cannot neglect the present for the sake of the future. Boria calls for a retreat, not wishing to make Lester her enemy, and also notes that she has already completed what she wished to do there. As they leave, Lester and the duo rush to Lilia, who is unconscious. Lester then tells Eri that if they lose sight of the world, to come find him. An attack is made against the Temple of Fire. The Saramange crashed right into the side of the building. Eri finds the staff and battles them, then asks why they joined Oblivion. They state that the development of flying boats has been restricted, and by Orthodoxy decree, the progress of technology has been halted for 200 years, something they disagree with. Meanwhile, Edea has encountered Oblivion, Boria, and George. Edea still doesn't understand why she feels so strange towards George, and he states that he is not the George she loves. Boria then knocks Edea unconscious as well. Boria arrives at the Temple of Wind and is greeted by those inside. Melope informs her that Edea wishes to meet with her. When they meet, Boria begins to explain the truth of the world to Edea. As Eri attempts to catch up, she is stopped by the 5 Wisdom Kings, who serve to protect Boria. After beating them, the duo interrupts the Wind Vestals' meeting. Boria continues to explain that the world is ruled by a god. Where in crystalism the flow of the world is commanded by the crystals and given strength through prayer, Borea believes that there is a god trying to intervene and control that flow. Edea asks how Borea knew who she was, and she reveals that Egil passed down a message that Edea Lee would appear one day, and that his line is to help and protect her. Borea then states that Agnes is in the god's possession, and that the god resides within the Grand Temple. Borea and Oblivion now move against the Grand Temple. A massive battle ensues as they try to break through the temple's defenses, with both Georges and Dione summoning allies for their respective sides. Aerie arrives to intervene, and Georges summons a Gigas Lich and Chaugmar to fight them off. Finally breaking through, Borea and Oblivion enter the temple, where two mysterious people wait. The man whispers to himself for Edea and Agnes to wait for him. Roanne and Ivy Beth are having a meeting with their anonymous third party again, as Borea and Oblivion enter the temple. All non-combatants are evacuated, and only soldiers are allowed to stay to defend the inner sanctums. As the duo enter the temple, they encounter Ivy Beth, who tells them to leave. Aerie asks about the god in the temple, and Ivy Beth tells them that if they want to pass and witness the truth, they will have to defeat her and the Rovos party. She goes on to explain that in the past, the Duke of Gelig wished to end the Orthodoxy's rule, which would have put Crystallica into a state of feudalism. So, Ivy Beth painted the Rovos party as evil to prevent the feudal state, and also fought against the other 5 families vying for control of the Orthodoxy to maintain order. Her black clothes are her way of mourning for those she has killed. The Pope then removes her eye patch, a magic restraint device, and begins battle. In the end, the Pope is defeated and lets the duo pass. When Roanne finds her, she demands to know why she allowed them to pass. She then sends in Enric of Secret Killer to deal with the intruders. Heading deeper into the temple, the duo are met by Archbishop Roanne, and Aerie asks if she knew the truth about God. She states they are acting in defiance of God, and Aerie says that the way Crystallica was living was no better than livestock. Roanne says things would be peaceful if people just accepted the will of the god, but then there were those like Borea who disrupted that peace and had to be dealt with. The secret killer group then appears, revealing that it was Roanne who ordered Borea's assassination. The Archbishop then reveals the purpose of her post, to hunt down heretics who threaten the security of the Orthodoxy's power, as it has been since the days of the first Inquisitor, Juliana. Her white gown is her symbol of keeping the peace at any cost. A fight ensues. After defeating the secret killer group, they reveal that in the past they were starving orphans with nowhere to go, and that Roanne took them in. Aerie then uses this to illustrate that Roanne is guilty of disobeying God's will, since if things were left to their natural course, the orphans would have died on their own. Roanne is unable to respond as the duo marches on. Deep in the temple, an unknown voice speaks to a silent Agnes, its words unintelligible. Upon reaching the deepest part of the temple, Aerie finds a shadowy figure and Agnes trapped inside of a crystal. The shadow figure suddenly takes control of Oblivion and makes him fight the duo. After the battle, Aerie demands to know what the entity is. It identifies itself as the will that commands the world, and maintains the peace and survival of mankind. Oblivion rises from faking his death, and states that he faked the attack on Aerie, that the god's power doesn't work on him because he comes from a time before the god made a contract with Bravely Sword, the Sword of the Brave. The shadow then incapacitates Oblivion, and then identifies itself as the Pope. At the Temple of Wind, Edea is wearing Agnes's pendant when it begins to glow. Aerie demands that the Pope explain itself. It states that it is a manifestation of the laws of the world, and that those who disturb the laws of the world must be expunged. After failing to kill the duo with Orthros, the Pope states that in order to ensure the world's survival, the world must repeat again. A bright light envelops everything, and each of the Vestals can be seen reacting to it. As the player awakens, Aerie introduces herself to them as a Christ Fairy. The player, still having their memories intact, tries to convince Eri that time has been rewound, and that none of the events that put Crystallica in peril have happened. Eri doesn't necessarily believe you, but the things you say seem familiar to her. Either way, she is staying with you, no matter what. While meeting with Seleno and Maya, Dione bursts in needing a favor done. While the three crystal officers are arguing about who's the senior, Eri blurts out that Dione is 300 years old, despite never having met her, apparently. Suspicious, Dione still tasks the duo with delivering a package to her acquaintance in the mountains. Making their way there, the two encounter Jian. Again, Eri recognizes her immediately as a member of the three wise men of the Abyss, but doesn't know why. Jian wishes to try a new kind of magic against the two that changes her form to that of a demon, and battle commences. After being defeated, Jian is given the box, but it is completely empty. Eri is confused, but Jian just says to look for Tsukino Kakura. When told what Jian said, Dione seems to understand, but does not elaborate. Meeting with Curie, she also does not recognize the duo, but asks if they can run to a cake shop in town for her. Accepting the task, they find Steina having trouble with some rude customers. Sakuya also appears and is harassed by them when Eri accidentally reveals that she is the Momoaki, when Sakuya hasn't made a public appearance yet since accepting her position. The duo chase off the goons, and afterwards Eri asks Sakuya if she knows Tsukino Kakura. She claims not to, but her reaction indicates otherwise. Returning to Curie with her cakes, Eri also asks her, and she also denies knowing who Tsukino is. The player wants to check on the Duchy's house by Lake Sumase Masaya, which Eri says has been abandoned for ages. But upon approaching, Duchy members step out, demanding to know who intrudes. Kikyo is silent but seems injured. Before the duo can fully explain themselves, the Black Knights appear, finally having found the Duchy members. They also turn their swords on the duo, roping them in as rebels of the Crystal Faith. After defeating the Black Knights, one of them mentions Ivy Beth's name before they all retreat. Kamizumi thanks the two for their assistance, and they leave. Eri asks why the player is so interested in one of the knights saying Ivy Beth, then seems confused when they call her the Pope. Before Eri can say who the current Pope is, however, Alternus catches up to them. He says that Kikyo got injured in a previous encounter with those knights, and that the two should look for the old man in gears. Seleno wants the duo to go clear out people who are illegally occupying a ruined chapel, which is still Orthodoxy property. Arriving there, the two are shocked to discover Roanne taking care of the secret killers and even more orphan children. Before they can persuade them to leave, the Blanca Corps shows up on Maya's orders to clear the premises with force. The duo fight them off and tell them that their missions have been overlapped, and if they don't like it, to go tell Maya what happened. After the Blanca Corps leaves, Eri explains that the chapel has been slated for demolition, so they will have to leave either way. Roanne understands and thanks the two for giving her time to leave. Reporting back to Seleno, she feels like she has known the duo for longer than she has, like they were friends. Lilia also does not know the duo, but has a request for them. She calls on Kamer, an old man in gears, to come out, and explains that since she has a knack for mechanisms and tinkering, she hired Kamer to help her out. Recently, his new pet-catching device was broken, and Lilia wants them to find out who did it. Going into the mountains, they come across Lucia freeing a panther from a trap and managing to tame the beast. After battling her, Lucia explains that the traps are harmful to all the creatures of the mountain. Returning to Lilia and informing her about the traps, she fires Kamer and tells him to dismantle all the traps in the mountains before leaving Petrania, while bringing Lucia into the temple based on her love for all life. The player wants to meet with Iglia next, and wishes to take a bottle of rare sake to guarantee an audience. Eri says that a particular sake she likes is made on the other side of the mountains, but since the bridge is broken, they will have to take a path through the valley of Chihiro. On their way through, they see Meliade being attacked by a Gigas Lich. When they come to rescue her, she refuses to let them kill it, and instead commands the Lich to attack them. After beating her, she explains that she too is a demon tamer, and when Eri mentions Lucia, Meliade explains that she was looking for her. Aerie tells her that Lucia is at the Temple of Earth, and Meliade has the Gigaslich make a new bridge with a giant rock. Iglia is very happy being gifted her favorite sake, but unfortunately she doesn't remember you either. However, she does have a task for the duo, to find a perfect snack to go with the sake, a king mega shark's fin. She says that they can be found on the Ignis coast. Fishermen try to prompt Aerie away, saying it's too dangerous, but the duo successfully slay the king mega shark and secure the fin. On the way back to Iglia, however, the player stops by a graveyard, recognizing the names on the graves as members of the Snake Messengers, a group that fought the Orthodoxy in the past and is not included in the archive. The player then realizes that they haven't been sent back in time, which confuses Aerie. Asking Iglia about the graveyard yields no new information, as she knows nothing about it. She also doesn't know the term Snake Messenger. Arriving at the Temple of Wind, Borea welcomes the duo, but though she is more kind and receptive than the other Vestals, she still does not recognize the two. The player tries to recite their adventures with the Vestals, battling the Duke of Geleg, the Snake Messengers, again, these two stories missing from the archive, the Crystal Guards, and the Ball, but Borea plays it off as the player having quite the imagination. She then asks that they make a delivery to the mountains for her. Once again, the two arrive at Flora's home, who is, again, on the brink of death from starvation. The package was food, which the player already told Aerie. Reviving the poor mage, she suddenly brings up how she has just run out of food from their last visit to claim the Borea document. When the player realizes that Flora's memory has not been affected, she suggests that the magic pattern on her skin protected her somehow. The pattern was granted by her master, who learned it from a witch of the moon ages ago. She recalls the flash of light and believes that the Pope reset the world to a state where no one knew of its existence. Before they can discuss further, however, Flora opens a letter included with the package telling her not to speak. Returning to Borea, she slowly hints at knowing what's going on, and will tell you where Edea is. She says to go to the Grand Temple, and that there, the duo will learn the meaning of Tsukino Kakura. Sneaking into the Grand Temple, the duo finds Sakuya hiding in a box to avoid Alcon's training regiment. Aerie demands to know what Tsukino Kakura is, but Sakuya wants something in return first, one of the Pope's sweets, since they are the only one allowed to eat them. Sneaking into the Pope's room, the duo encounter the Royal Guard Pretty Cakes, who also seem to be trying to sneak some treats. The two sides clash, and afterwards, the Pope enters. Pope Edea. She allows everyone to take a sweet each, since she can never eat them all. She also does not recognize the player when they ask. Sakuya is delighted by the treat, and then finally gives the answer they were seeking. Tsukino Kakura is the name of a leftover technology that came from the highly advanced Moon civilization. If researched, it could advance Crystallica's technology by hundreds of years, but it was suddenly banned and made secret. Maya sends the duo to a village where there's been reports of bandit attacks. When they arrive, they find the Jackal facing off against two others, Bjorn and Wriggle. The other two summon beasts to fight for them, and Aerie takes Jackal's side in the conflict. Afterwards, the villagers explain that both groups were good, that they both cleared out bandits in different areas, and then happened to cross paths and thought the other was bad. Bjorn and Wriggle then explain that they've been traveling around together for ages, and list some of the places they've been to, one of which was a village that had been occupied by descendants of the Moon People. Aerie is quick to ask for directions, and then informs them that their comrades are in Petrania currently. After their mission, Maya informs them that it was Pope Edea that asked specifically for the duo to do this mission, but she couldn't understand when they would have met her. Arriving at the Moon People's village, they encounter a young girl named Rondo telling them to leave. After saving her from a demon beast attack, she explains that black soldiers attacked the village a while ago, burning and destroying everything they could. She couldn't answer their question about Tsukino Kakura, but she suggests they go visit someone in the valley of Asia for answers. Rondo also mentions that there was a scholar named Nickel who visited prior. Approaching the valley, the duo find Willin and Elva of the Forestry Corps there. Upon initially refusing to take them down into the valley, Aerie offers the Pope's sweets to Willin, who happily accepts and decides to lead them down, which makes Elva follow after. As they go down, they run into Barris' lair and Shindit, the person they were looking for. Barris supposedly protected Shindit from the beasts in the valley, but is now exhausted from fighting them. Suddenly, a nearly endless barrage of chompers attack. The group is unable to stop them all, but Willing uses her magic to make the trees release the odor of a nut chompers like to eat, and they all run off. Shindit does not wish to give the answer about Tsukino Kakura, but she tells the group to go to the limestone cave in Yumigiwa, where her companion will answer the question. She also states that the Moon People had no faith in the former people of Luxendark, but there are some who are willing to take a chance on them now. Going into the cave with Sakuya, who was the one to send Nickel for research purposes originally, they come across Hisame guarding the way. Nickel was already beaten and injured, and Hisame tells them if they forget everything and leave, she will spare their lives. A battle ensues, and Hisame is defeated. Eri tells her that Shindit sent them, and this changes Hisame's behavior immediately. After attending to Nickel's wounds, he explains that most of the runes were so destroyed from the catastrophe that almost nothing remained, but he managed to piece together a few things. The ruins were a temple for the Shrine Maiden of the Moon People's descendants, and it is located on the Misty Mountain. He tells them to go on ahead without him, since he's too injured to move. Reaching the temple on the Misty Mountain, shrouded in fog, the duo encounters Sashe, and soon after, her sister Hisame joins her. They explain that long ago this mountain was where the Moon People first landed, and that they are the descendant guardians called the Mystic Gazers. To fight off enemies from beyond the Starfrost, they came down to Luxendark to borrow the power of its people. Borrowing something from the ground, they successfully repelled the foe, but the people of Luxendark did not wish to give up the power they had been granted by the Moon People, and began fighting amongst each other. The Moon People grew fearful of Luxendark's residents, so they gathered up the weapons, sealed them away, and returned to the moon, leaving a few behind to guard the weapons. Sashe and Hisame then say that none can know this truth, and that if the duo survive their battle, they will have earned the right to live. They fight, and the duo win. Sashe states that at least the duo being this powerful means they won't have any reason to seek the power of the Moon People, before saying that they hate the power of the Pope, which defies all reason in this world. Before Eri can get them to explain, the fog overwhelms them, and the pair of sisters are gone. Meanwhile, Boria is alerted that the player and Eri have succeeded in the Moon People's trials, and have learned of Tsukino Kakura. She then sends Luluga off to do her next part, and then speaks of Iglia making the next move. Iglia has a secret mission for the duo, to help her drinking friend break someone out of prison. Convening with the person, they encounter De Rosa, who leads them to the prison before disappearing. As they move in, all the guards begin to chase after Eri and the player, resulting in a fight. De Rosa then returns, admitting that he used the duo as a decoy while he broke Foreign out of prison. She summons a mechanical soldier to fend off the guards as the four make their escape. She is another of the beast tamers, and Eri informs her of where her comrades are. However, De Rosa states that Foreign made him a promise, and they head off together. In the mountains, Ivy Beth asks Oblivion how long it's going to take for the repairs of the Saramage to be complete. Oblivion states that it's going to take some time to fix the mechanisms, and that he wishes Calmer was with them. De Rosa arrives with Foreign, who can help with the repairs. The old red mage then states that he wishes he could have greeted the duo, meaning his memories are intact just like the others. The player decides that the next thing to investigate would be the Bravely Sword that Oblivion mentioned before everything was reset. Eri suggests they try the temple library, but upon asking the librarians, none of them know anything about a Bravely Sword. However, there is one person who has read every book in the library, Luluna. Going deeper into the library, the duo comes across the Shanebo Circus, the people responsible for attacking the village of the Moon People. After fending them off, Luluna appears and shoos out the circus people for making a ruckus. When she turns to Eri, the fairy states they were looking for her, but when they ask about Bravely Sword, Luluna states that she is unfamiliar with the term. She then informs the duo of the Forbidden Book Warehouse, and says that if the information is anywhere, it's there. As the duo leave, Ivy Beth comes out of hiding, hoping aloud that the duo can find the truth about Bravely Sword. Asking Seleno about the warehouse, she refuses to give the duo permission to enter. Dione overhears this and seems to think about it before leaving. Eri points out that without permission, it's going to be difficult for them to get into the warehouse, as it is currently guarded. They see a girl named Dahlia pass by, and the player thinks they recognize them. Approaching the entry, the two try to sneak past all the guards while they're distracted, but get caught and a fight erupts. After the fight, Praline a la mode appears and shows a letter with the Pope's stamp, stating that the player and Eri have permission to enter. Going inside, Praline reveals that she was doing this so she could sneak Dahlia in, who comes out of hiding. She wanted to research the works inside as a librarian's apprentice, but knows nothing of Bravely Sword, and states that nothing on it may exist in this warehouse either. Dahlia states that there isn't anything written on Bravely Sword, because it was completely outlawed to be written or spoken about. However, there would be works left behind before the decree was made. Dahlia mentions a work left by the Moon People just before the catastrophe from a different group than the Mystic Gazers. The work was called Magnolia's Memory, and it is likely being held in a secret Undercity store. Going down to the Underworld City, the duo enter a bar. Some of the patrons recognize them as temple investigators, and members of the thief group Evening Star believe they have come to arrest them. Before Eri can explain, the Evening Star members attack them. Eventually, Kint appears and orders drinks for everyone, then leads the duo away from the bar. They meet with Jackal as well, who refers to Kint as his teacher. Eri explains they are looking for an information store. Meeting with the fortune teller Forte, Eri asks for information. Forte offers the info for free, instead of 1 million Peeg, if the player will let her read their fortune, since they have a strange light. Forte says that the light is there, but she cannot see their past or future, a first in her profession. She then informs the duo that the person who knows of Magnolia's memory is a mage named Aerolanta, who is being held in the temple prison. Planning to, again, break into the prison, the two bump into De Rosa, and Eri demands his help as payback for using them as a decoy. He agrees, then shouts to the guards that the duo were the criminals involved in the previous jailbreak. Captured and placed in a cell, one guard approaches the duo and gives them a package with a letter. The letter is from De Rosa, explaining that he bribed the guard to deliver the package, along with a red box and a map leading to Aerolanta's cell. Following the instructions provided, the red box serves as an explosive device that the duo use to escape their cell. Making their way through the prison, they find Aerolanta and break her free before making their escape with De Rosa. Once safe, Aerolanta reveals that she had been investigating the technology of the Moon People and had come across Magnolia's memory. She hands Eri a crest, stating that the city which had that crest was deeply tied to the orthodoxy in the distant past, and supposedly the memory was hidden to the northwest of that city. Maya has a private job for the duo, as ordered by Pope Edea. There are grave robbers attacking an archaeological site, and they must be cleared out. At the site, the Gunners Club is attacking and killing the workers as they hunt for treasures within. Francis, the foreman, allows the duo to head in and deal with the club. After they are defeated, Francis shows Eri what they were uncovering: the ruins of Gathlashio and the Crystal Cathedral, which has a stone engraved with a symbol that matches the crest Eri was given. Iglia wants to have dinner with Curie. When the duo goes to inform Curie, she is happy to accept and would like to prepare Iglia's favorite dish, but is lacking the ingredients. The duo sets out to collect salamander steaks and brings them back to Curie. While back at the Temple of Water, Eri notices a painting on the wall that bothers her, as it is done in sepia. Curie explains that the painting, A World Without Night, is based on old stories from the past. Supposedly, just before the catastrophe, the moon disappeared from the sky, and time ceased to flow. She speculates that perhaps the moon's disappearance is what caused the catastrophe to happen, but then relents that it's just a story. After all, they have a moon in their sky. At the dinner, Iglia informs Curie that the duo has found the ruins of Gathlashio, and that it will soon happen. Eri realizes that even though they have found Gathlashio, the layout of Crystallica is far different than that of Luxendark's. She suggests finding a map of old Luxendark in order to figure out where they need to go. and the academic city of Rorschach should have the answers they seek. Meeting with a geographer, he states that a map of the area near Eternia and Florum is nearing completion, and tells them to return in a week for it. When the duo returns, however, the laboratory is under attack by the Goldbird's butlers and maids. After fighting them off, they flee, and the geographer is on the brink of death, with all the maps burned. Before he dies, though, he reveals that there is another copy of the map somewhere safe with someone, but fails to reveal who. Curie wishes to have dinner with Lilia, and asks the duo to set it up. Lilia accepts, and suggests that Curie would like to listen to the Crystal Orchestra while she eats. The orchestra accepts, but Arya asks for a consultation from the temple investigators. She leads them to their friend Malta, who received a letter from her uncle who had just died a week ago. Aerie realizes that Malta is the niece of the geographer, and that the letter had the copy of the map enclosed. They explain the situation, and Malta is welcome to join the orchestra while they play for the Vestals. This lightens Malta up, and she offers the map to Aerie. At the dinner, Lilia informs Curie that the duo now have the map. Celaeno and Maya have gotten a report that they may have found a group connected to the Gunners Club and Goldberg's servants that have been attacking people recently. An older man, a skilled swordsman, and a beautiful woman. The duo investigates the Mochi's pirates, but they have been out to seas for months and only just docked back on land. Checking the port, the duo spot Heinkel, Barbarossa, and Mephilia talking together, also matching the description Celaeno gave. When they spot the duo, they recognize them as the ones who beat the gunners and the servants and plan to attack. During the fight, a drunken Mochus is injured and needs immediate care while the three duchy members run off. Pope Edea meets with the duo afterwards and is surprised to hear who the masterminds were, but believes there may be someone more sinister behind them. Using the map, Aerie tracks down the location where Magnolia's memory seems to be to a floating island. Upon reaching the island, the two are attacked by Ominous Crow and Artemia Venus, who want to eliminate them on Mephilia's orders. Fighting them off, the two look around for a bit, but then Dahlia appears and informs them that the memory is not here. She was also searching for the memory and found another island where the memory could be. Dahlia then states that the fact Ominous and Artemia were here means that the Black Soldiers may be prowling around. She explains that their job is to eradicate anyone or anything that could possibly cause conflict in Crystallica, and then remove it from the history books so it is never known of. Aerie then asks how Dahlia knew of Bravely Sword, and she says she cannot answer. Dahlia suggests they check Satuba Island next. Finding a temple there, the duo enter to find multiple skeletons littering the ground. There are engravings in the walls, telling the tale of those who died there. The temple was a retreat for those who were around during the catastrophe, how they lived through a world without night or day, and how the arrival of the balls was bringing about the end of humanity. The messages end with the people begging for God to save them. Suddenly, Alternus steps out of the shadows and attacks the duo. They run outside, only to be cut off by Einherja and Brave. Shortly after the battle, Victor and Victoria join in, but Lester arrives and summons a cluster of bats to blind the duchy members, whisking the duo away to safety. He saved them because Lilia would be sad if they died. He then explains that the Black Soldiers are merely the strongest people of an era, manipulated by the boy who calls himself the Pope, in order to remove any who would cause conflict in his world. Lester says that the Pope is getting scared now, and that the duo are close to uncovering the truth, so they must push onward. Borea calls on the duo to go investigate a relic in the mountains of former Eternia. It is supposedly healing people, but Borea wants it destroyed. Arriving at the site, Luluga is trying to keep people away from the relic, but the villagers are beginning to get agitated at being denied this miracle. When the duo arrive to destroy it, they only get angrier until the device suddenly rises, transforming into an automaton. After defeating it, Luluga recalls that Eternia used the power of the crystal to heal people, but with no crystal here, the occasional healing the relic gave was sourced from stealing the life force from multiple other people. But despite this revelation, the villagers don't seem to care, even after Aerie shouts at them, asking if they've truly given up hope to the point that they'd sacrifice each other for their own well-beings. Returning to Borea, she thanks them for destroying the relic, before asking if the duo had heard the phrase bravely default before. She explains that it means to courageously abandon one's duties, to be defiant. She also tells them of bravely second, or having the courage to start over. As Eri leaves, Sashay appears and tells Borea that though there is possible danger, the duo have passed her judgment. Borea just replies by saying that the duo will find the truth. There's only one possible island left on Eri's map for the dwelling place of Magnolia's memory, Sagitta Island. Upon arriving, they meet Luluga and the other mystic gazers, who wish to do battle as a final test of worthiness for the truth. Once the battle ends, all but Luluga disappear, who were just magical illusions summoned by moon technology for the purpose of testing the duo. Luluga leads the two down into the island, where a massive door stands. Beyond it rests Magnolia's memory, a crystal with no element. Slowly, the shape of a figure emerges in the crystal, that of Magnolia Arch. She begins to reveal the truth of the world to Eri and the player. Magnolia explains that 200 years prior, the Glands Empire was in a struggle with the Orthodoxy, and that Kaiser Oblivion had kidnapped Pope Anyez. Magnolia, the leader of the Crystal Guard, and 2 Warriors of Light traveled across the globe trying to stop him, but in the end, Oblivion used the space-time compass, completely playing into the enemy's hands. The enemy is unknown, but it is the one who had been sending the balls from beyond the Starfrost for eons. Once the enemy made their move, the moon was extinguished, and the balls invaded Luxendark as time stopped, resulting in the world reaching its end layer. The earth was scorched, the sea dried up, and half of the world's population were killed within just half a year. Edea believed that the only way to save the world was to get Anyez back, and so she traveled into the future while the rest of the world banded together to hold back the balls until she returned. Over the next 5 years, the global population had been cut in half again. After that, the crystals broke, and the world began to fall apart from there. Eri interrupts, stating that the Orthodoxy's teachings stated that the crystal's destruction was the cause of the catastrophe, not an effect of it. Magnolia continues to say that the crystal's end was caused by one man, the Pope. It was not intentional that the crystals were destroyed. The Pope was just a lonely, weak crystallist who had not the strength to fight and barely enough to move himself. But one day, he encountered something, the Sword of the Brave. He made a pact with the sword, a wish, to save humanity. The sword granted the wish, but demanded an equal price. For humanity's safety, the Sword of the Brave destroyed the crystals, resulting in the destruction of Luxendark thereafter. The shattered crystals spread across the world, resulting in pieces of Luxendark beginning to float away from the surface, which eventually gave rise to Crystallica. But even that wasn't enough for the sword. The Pope was then mutated into something non-human, a being whose sole existence became focused around maintaining the survival of humanity, and that anything that threatened such survival would be dealt with by the being. It is by the Pope's will that humanity be trapped in an unchanging eternity. Magnolia goes on to explain that only a select few are able to withstand the Pope's power. Those born before the catastrophe and before the wish was made, or someone with the power of the Moon People, who developed a technique to call upon the power of will. This was the purpose of the Tsukino Kakura relics. Luluga explains that Magnolia requested that this crystal be made and sealed away with the relics in Sagitta village. Before Magnolia can state one more thing though, an attack is made on the temple. The duo hurry outside to find Victor and Victoria trying to get in, and face off against them. After beating them, however, all the remaining duchy that the Pope has made into the Black Soldiers arrive, ready to kill the player and Eri. Each of the Vestals has one of the mystic gazers with them as they prepare to take action. The Black Soldiers are about to attack the duo again, after already losing once, when suddenly an equally large half of the duchy appears to combat them, as well as Alternus facing off against himself. Within the temple, Magnolia calls for the Vestals to start. Each of the 4 Vestals begins to pray to their crystals, releasing SP energy for the cannon on Sagitta Island to use. When it reaches 120%, Magnolia aims for the Grand Temple to destroy the Pope and fires. The Pope recognizes this and uses all of its power to protect itself with a shield, absorbing 98% of the shot. The flow of SP energy makes the Black Soldiers remember who they are and breaks the Pope's hold over them. Far away, Ivy Beth and Oblivion prepare the Saramange to take off. It's time to invade the Grand Temple. The Pope does not understand why the people of Crystallica fight its will. It plans to reset everything again, but not before removing the problem causers. De Rosa explains that those who were a part of the Glands Empire before the reset were able to use a snake messenger technique to prevent their memories from being rewritten, and that now that the SP cannon had hit the Pope, it was no longer capable of messing with their memories. A ball is spotted by Aerie, and through Moontech, Magnolia remotely communicates that it is a copy of a ball made from data. Now that the SP cannon is still firing on the temple, SP particles cover the land of Crystallica, which means that the copy ball is forced into existence. After defeating it, 4 more reports of balls are sighted, each heading to one of the 4 Vestal temples. Brave tells the duo to leave the cannon's defense to them, while Aerie and the player go to the Vestal's aid. Inside its chamber, the Pope worries about how even the balls are being defeated. It then turns to George, who plans to make use of his power. Rushing to the Temple of Wind, Aerie warns Borea of the oncoming ball, which she is already aware of. Before it comes, she reveals that she always knew something was strange with the world, and that even though she was killed trying to counter the Pope, it was thanks to the duo's actions and those of Oblivion that her plan flourished. Aerie then realizes that what Borea did to the Vestals in the world's last iteration, by knocking them unconscious, allowed them to retain their memories for this version of the world. The ball attacks before Borea can finish telling them everything, and she is seriously injured after the fight. She tells the duo to hurry, that if even one crystal falls to the Pope, then everything will fail. Barris and Holly arrive to back the temple up as the duo hurry along. As Melope rushes to the Vestal's aid, Borea states that she still has something she needs to do. Arriving at the Temple of Water, Curie admits a secret to the duo. She did not develop the crystal synthesis method on her own. She could not figure it out herself, but one day, a piece of new crystal, likely taken from Sagitta Island, was delivered to her from the Pope via the Archbishop. She had always felt guilty over becoming a Vestal through false accomplishments, compared to someone as proud as Edea. The ball attacks and is defeated, but before leaving for the next temple, Aerie tells Curie that being able to admit her faults and accept her weaknesses makes her a good Vestal. Einherja asserts this as well, arriving with Mephilia and Barbarossa, and Curie accepts their words, willing now to carry her weakness on her back and work towards the future. Artemia and Ominous are already defending the Temple of Fire when the duo arrive. Edea reveals to the duo that she was actually the failed attempt at recreating Frank George's daughter through summoning. That's why she felt so strange when seeing him before. She never felt wanted, and the fact that she was a clone made her all the more frustrated. Aerie replies that it doesn't matter whether she was the real thing or not, that she still loves Edea for who she is. Encouraged by Aerie's words, Edea helps stand up against the ball, and eventually it is cut down. As the duo go to leave, Edea asks them to give a message to George if they meet him, to thank him for giving her life. Arriving at the Temple of Earth, the duo find the place being overrun by demon beasts. Just as Verda announces that a section of the wall has fallen, the beast tamers arrive to help defend the temple. With the outside covered, Aerie and the player rush inside to see Lilia. With her memory restored, she asks how old Aerie thinks she is. When Aerie answers with 10, Lilia reveals that she's actually 200, created as an artificial human back in the Duchy of Eternia before the catastrophe. To keep her under control, Lilia stopped growing after a certain point, and that every 10 years, her memory would be reset. Perpetually kept in the state of a child, being told what to do, what to eat, clinging to her lineage. She was sick of it, and now with her memory being returned from Borea's actions, she planned to take control of her life, to grow up into a beautiful young woman. The DeRosso heir refuses to let the ball do as it wishes, and demands the duo's aid in taking it down. Lilia shows her true strength during the fight, but the ball suddenly rises again to strike her. Before it can, she is rescued by Lester DeRosso, who Lilia knew was her ancestor, always watching over her. Victor and Victoria arrive to help hold off the demon beasts as well. As the duo start to make for the Grand Temple, they are picked up by the Saramange with Oblivion, its crew, and the Rei Daoshi. As they approach the temple, 4 great dragons are sent by the Pope to attack them. After they are defeated, Oblivion orders the 5 Wisdom Kings to defend the deck before returning to Eri and the player. Eri asks why Oblivion is fighting so hard for this, and he explains that in the past, his own plans to right past wrongs were manipulated by the Evil One. He states that the Pope's plan involves using Agnes and the space-time compass, but to what end is unclear. He now wants the duo's help in finding Edea, who they will need to end this nightmare. A riot of citizens has formed outside of the Grand Temple, demanding answers for the current events, and Seleno has nothing to offer. As the duo and Oblivion arrive, Edea tumbles out of the temple with Lucifer, one of the Sin Beasts, in tow. She asks for their assistance in taking it down, as it is another of the Pope's creations. Edea's memories were also not affected, since she was from the past. The people begin to grow violent and angry, believing the Orthodoxy lied to them and that the Vestals are behind all this madness. As death threats are thrown through the air, Ivy Beth stands above the crowd and accepts responsibility for the goings-ons, revealing that the Orthodoxy had been deceived. Rowan joins her, confirming Ivy Beth's words. When the people see the Pope and the Archbishop finally agreeing on something together, they are swayed and cheer for them to stop the corruption. Rowan then apologizes to Ivy Beth, saying that she always hated how the Pope would act so tall and never let her be on the same level. Ivy Beth laughs and forgives her, then says she loves Rowan's awkwardness and how cute she is now that she's standing up. Rowan blushes embarrassed. Rowan reveals that she once tried to kill Edea in the past, but incurred the Pope's wrath and was killed. She goes on to say that she had been killed and resummoned by the Pope numerous times, and that she is sorry for using the power of the Pope to try to dictate Crystallica's future. Ivy Beth tells her it's alright, and that she can't change the past now. Moving into the temple, the group encounters Hakusan, Bald Sixth, Snowcap, with a special space-time enforced shield, making it immune to any damage. Oblivion exclaims that the power of will must be used, but neither he or Edea know how to call upon it. Just then, Praline a la mode appears, and using her performer asterisk, with the support of her fans, her music is imbued with SP power that shatters the barrier. Now with Hakusan being vulnerable, the heroes take their chance and slay the beast. Oblivion explains to Edea afterwards that the Marshal and Kaiser asterisks have power beyond their normal capabilities, to call upon the power of the people's will without technology or crystals. But when he calls for them all to go deeper into the temple, Edea refuses to work with him. Praline steps in again and says that it's best to save the infighting until after the job is done. Edea hesitantly agrees to work with him just this once, but on the condition that if they save Agnes, that Oblivion has to let her hit him. He gladly accepts, and Edea thanks Praline for her aid. Rushing into the temple, Oblivion calls for a pause. Since they know the Pope plans to use the space-time compass, Agnes and the Bravely Sword, they should be searching for one of them to disrupt his plans. Unfortunately, with the Bravely Sword, since it too seems like a devil, it seems to exist between multiple dimensions at its own will, making it hard to lock down. Suddenly, the group encounters Georges, who maintains his sanity, but is still being controlled by the Pope like a puppet. He apologizes before summoning the Lion Dance and 2 more Sin Beasts, begging for death. Clearing all the enemies, Georges lies dying. Eri manages to give Iglia's message to him before he passes, making him happy as he goes to join his daughter. The Pope sees this occur and uses those beasts' deaths to summon 3 more units, the 3 Cavaliers. It claims that Edea and Oblivion's strength is still fragile, as a mystery man watches. As the group makes their way through the temple, Oblivion feels a sensation where his prosthetic hand is. He believes that it's resonating with the Bravely Sword. As they continue on, they encounter Jan, who mocks Oblivion. Thankfully, the Kaiser realizes that the Pope has just summoned a clone and possessed it. Jan summons more creatures alongside him, and the battle begins. As Jan's body collapses, Oblivion senses that the Pope has retreated elsewhere. Nearby, Aerie finds the neutral crystal with Agnes inside. Dahlia then appears and explains that since the neutral crystal can accept any element, if you force it into a state of prayer by putting a Vestal inside, it could be used to awaken the Holy Pillar. Thus, the Pope is planning to go back in time to before the floating islands ever existed, and then use memory manipulation to control the world again while eliminating everyone else. Edea decides that she must break the crystal. Dahlia tells Edea that she needs to overload the crystal with prayer to shatter it safely. When Aerie asks how she knows that, Dahlia states she'll explain later. As the others defend Edea, the Pope returns in a new clone, that of Yu Geniolja, along with more beasts. After defeating Yu's clone, the crystal shatters, Dahlia has disappeared, and Agnes awakens. She reveals that Dahlia was a projection of her thoughts from the crystal, so they were one and the same. Edea doesn't care either way and happily embraces her friend. Suddenly, Yu gets up and attempts to attack Edea, but Borea appears to take the blow instead. Oblivion finishes off the false Yu, but Borea is now on the brink of death. She tells Edea that this is fine, and that she is happy to give back to the people who brought her ancestor out of the mines to a better life. She also wishes that Oblivion will someday be able to remove his mask, and for Aerie not to forget Bravely Default, as it is what she will need to defeat the Bravely Sword. The group's next objective is to collect the space-time compass. As they search around, Edea teases Agnes over wanting to see Tiz, but Agnes asks in response about the one she wants to see. Before Edea can respond, she is shocked to see Ringabel standing before them. Ringabel tries to coerce Edea to come with him, claiming that the others will hurt her, like Oblivion and liar Aerie did before. Though Oblivion senses that he is a fake, Edea is too overwhelmed to listen. Ringabel decides that he has to kill the group to get Edea to listen. After the party strikes him down, Alternus appears to finish him off, and finally gets through to Edea that it was a fake, that the real Ringabel will always be there to protect her. She then sees through the crack in his helmet, and realizes who he is, before he takes off again. Sensing one more presence, Oblivion rushes to the next room to find Nikolai taking off with the compass. Cornering Nikolai in the final chapel, a place only the Pope itself is allowed to enter, the party demands that it hands over the compass. But the Pope says that it is not alone, it still has one minion left. Aerie. It reveals that Aerie was created based off the original, and has been feeding intel to the Pope the entire time. Aerie apologizes to the party and admits to being the Pope's familiar. The Pope orders her to kill the party, and she transforms into her perfect form. The party manages to defeat Aerie, and she returns to her original self. The Pope is shocked by this, and Oblivion takes this chance to strike down the Nikolai clone. Aerie admits to remembering all along who she was and what she did, as she felt nothing but guilt over her past actions. She gives the party and the player the chance to kill her, but instead, they forgive her, now that she should be free from the Pope's command, and can make her own choices. She is quiet, but thankful to everyone. Meanwhile, Oblivion's arm still tingles, meaning that the Pope is not gone yet. With the party realizing the Pope is not dead, the temple rumbles and the ceiling collapses as the moon descends. Edea finally remembers when Magnolia wept for her home being destroyed 200 years ago, which meant that the Pope's true body was a false moon all along. Finally, the battle against the Pope begins. After beating the Pope, the false moon disappears, but the Pope has retreated back into the vessel of Nikolai. It still has an ace up its sleeve. The Pope calls upon the Sword of the Brave, and asks that it grants the Pope's wish of resurrection, offering any price it wants. Edea says, "Fuck, stop the Pope." But surprisingly, the sword does not fulfill the wish. As a being who has already given up everything, even its own humanity, the Pope has nothing left to offer the sword, and so it cannot make the exchange. As such, the Pope realizes it will die, but claims that all that is left for humanity is a future of despair. Eri accepts that, and states that they will push onwards, to build the better future for themselves. The Pope realizes that this was the first thing it lost, the will to push onwards, and then passes from the world. Oblivion searches for the space-time compass amidst the rubble of the temple, but finds it has been destroyed, and since it was made by someone of the celestial realm, it cannot be repaired. Anya says that may be alright, since even if they could return to the past, it doesn't mean events would change. The Sword of the Brave then speaks up, and announces that there is another matter that must be addressed. With the death of the Pope, its wish also comes to an end, meaning that the destruction of the world will become imminent, and Crystallica will fall. With the false moon gone as well, time has frozen again, and the balls will soon return. Suddenly, Eri has an idea, and asks the sword to see if her idea is possible, to rewind time to the point of divergence, where the timeline split into this future of despair, and if it is possible, to create new options to avoid this future. The sword confirms that this is possible, but that the wish is too big for Eri to make. She has not enough to offer for such a wish. However, there is one person there who can: the player. In order for the sword to confirm that the player is outside the rules of the world, it demands that they battle those of this world that have mastered its principles: the Pope Ivy Beth, the Archbishop Roanne, and all 4 of the Vestals. The other 5 are teleported to the Grand Temple, and each accept their part in the trial, with Oblivion and Anya standing by as witnesses. After a hard-fought battle, the player is victorious. The sword then reveals the player as being an entity of the celestial realm, the very one who once inhabited the body of the Shepherd of Norende, which explains their immense strength. Edea also states that, although she couldn't place it, that you reminded her of Tiz. The sword is willing to accept the wish, and thus it demands its price: separation from this world. This means the player would no longer be able to interfere in the world, but as sad as that is for everyone, each person there accepts the cost, realizing that true salvation also requires the desire to be saved, not some self-imposed nature on the world. Anya's finishes by saying that all they can do is pray their thoughts will reach the player. They're praying Brage. Eri remains silent as the wish is granted, and the world is returned to its divergence point, to the beginning of Bravely Second. In a void, waiting to disappear, Eri speaks to herself. She reveals that she didn't speak up at the very end, because she knew that if she voiced her desire to not be separated from the player, that would make them feel bad. She knows that everyone is likely leading a better life now, but she knows that she will fade away into nothing because she is a being of despair that has no place in the new timeline of hope. But before she can vanish, someone appears before her. Ring a bell. Eri asks what he is doing here, and he explains that he is here for her. He says that she still has business in the world, and that's why she hasn't disappeared yet. Even if she won't be called Eri, or even if she's not a fairy, she's still needed. Ring-a-Bell shows her something, and Eri is surprised by what she sees: the player. Ring-a-Bell says she's the only partner for them, but Eri doesn't understand, since the player was supposed to be separated from their world. He reminds her that the future is different now, a future where the player didn't make that choice and can still interact with their world. Now, are you ready to go? Ring-a-Bell asks her. Laughing, the fairy accepts, ready to see her partner again. I'll hang out with you a little longer. Well, that brings this story to a close. But there may be one last question you may still have, though. How did Edea get to the future exactly? Well, I have no way of verifying this, but I have no reason to believe someone would lie about Bravely Default lore, so While doing research, I came across a Tumblr post that claimed to have a mild explanation as to how Edea reached the future. It states that Edea discovered some old texts that spoke of a mechanism deep within Grandship, and thus through activating that device, Edea was able to travel to the future. I was genuinely surprised at how well Praying Brage fits into the canon of Bravely, as tangential as it is. Even if it is never referenced in the future of the Muxendark saga, whenever that gets continued, hopefully, it manages to expertly follow up on an abandoned timeline and do something interesting with it. It would be cool to see the characters of Crystallica return, or be referenced in future entries too, just so long as we don't start falling into Kingdom Hearts territory of needing to save everyone. But as for you, I hope the video was enjoyable. What are your thoughts on the story of Praying Brage, now having experienced it in some way? Let me know down in the comments, or join my Discord and we can chat there. If you like this kind of video, then make sure you like and subscribe so that I know. This video was a lot of work to put together, but I do like making these longer plot analysis videos, so showing your support will let me know to make more stuff like this. Thank you very much for watching, have a great day, and I'll see you soon.